And yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Obviously, what we do is pull off the question board for all our live viewers. But there's things that we're talking about in light of what's going on in the world today too. And I could look back at some of the ways things were impacted with fishing and travel fishing. You know, and in many respects, I'm reflecting back on how all these things have changed. And I could tell you about like in 2001 after 9/11, it changed a lot. We had a trip scheduled on my brother's boat on the Cherokee, and I can remember having helicopters flying over us going out of Point Loma, boats running assist alongside, checking us all out. And it's almost like we're going to get back to that a little bit. We just don't know what's going on. And then one of the other things that just coincided was that year the first time I went down to Brazil with Steve Utomi, and it was just eerie flying into Miami and LA with armed airports, with the guards, well, the National Guard and Army personnel, carrying the M16s, and then going through that in your travel all the way down to South America. So wow. Hoping we never had to do that again, but it looks like those times are upon us. So beware. Obviously it looks like I just talked to Steve Utomi, and he just got back. He did a hop from Indonesia, and he had a short layover in LA, I think for a day, and then hopped back on a plane. He's not back down in Brazil. So obviously everything's going full bore down there, and everything's good. But just be cognizant. There's different things. Check with all your flight people, all your people that you prep with your trip, and make sure you got everything copacetic. Make sure you don't have certain things in your packing and stuff. Check the regulations, and but other than that, it looks like for now it's okay. But just be careful. So anyway. Phil, should we start in on questions? We're going to go through a few other things.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. It's good to be back with you. I'm just back from a 5-day trip on the Independence. Happy to answer any questions and get Danny's take on what was just a fabulous trip. It was outstanding. We fished very close to home, 35, 40 miles from home, from San Diego, and we had phenomenal fishing. Somebody sent me our exact score. I forget exactly what it was, but we had, I think, 150 bluefin, something like that. We had 150, 180 yellowfin, something like that. 100 plus on the Dorado. And it was just great fishing every single day. What a rig the Independence is, Danny.
Phil, anybody look at the date? They were going into November, folks, and we called it a late year. And you know what? I'm still not giving up on albacore, people. I'm still not getting, there's squid out on the bank. So, don't put your fishing gear away. Normally about this time we would be, but, I think it's just getting going on the banks. When you get out to Tanner, Cortez, there's squid on the bank. So you're going to probably see bluefin year round, Phil. We're going to see bluefin all year round. I think we'll start getting some yellowfin. I could definitely, a yellowtail. I need to supply my yellowtail. I would make a trip out there again for that. To fill my freezer. I gave a lot away and we used a lot. But, speaking of which, down the road too, I think we're going to implement some culinary things too. I mean, what I did the other day was I took some of the yellowtail, and I don't know if I mentioned this before. Did I talk about the recipe for doing the ceviche, which is a morphed Japanese and Mexican style ceviche?
You did, I think, but there may be new people who want to listen to that.
Well, you guys listening in, here you go. If you get the yellowfin, slice it up like sashimi. Now, they're doing this in Mexico a lot now, okay? And you're seeing more and more sushi bars pop up. But you slice the yellowtail like it's, and you can use yellowfin too, but I use the yellowtail. Slice it as you would cut sashimi, lay it out, and I put it on a big platter, squeeze the lime on it, I hit it with Kikkoman Light, shoyu, soy sauce, folks. Tapatio, hit it with the tapatio. Then on top of that, you dice up a bunch of cilantro, throw the cilantro across the whole top, dice up some red onion, throw it across, little pieces, throw it across the top. So it's not only that, it's beautiful looking, the aesthetics because of the colors. So when you're serving it at a party, it'll knock them out. And then when they eat it, it's even better. And then you finish it with serranos. Now, if you're tough, you can leave the seeds in. I take the seeds out so you get the flavor of the serrano, but not the heat without the seeds. And then you serve it with good chips. So you go to one of the Superiors, or it used to be called the Numero Uno, but you go get the fresh chips that they do daily, and you serve it with that. It is a killer.
God, that sounds
It
good.
is an absolute killer.
That sounds good.
Hopefully, and I'm thinking, we're going to start with the squid on the bank. I think we're going to start seeing some good yellowtail fishing on the bank, and I don't think the bluefin are going anywhere either. So expect fishing all winter, folks. That's my call.
All right, sounds good. Live free, die free says, good evening, everyone. Good to have you with us. Puck you, Phil, the Horizon trip. Oh, thank you for mentioning the Horizon trip. I'll talk about that here right now. Looks a bit light. Is it a go? It is a definite go, Puck you, and it is a little bit light, but that doesn't surprise me. Around this time of year, people wait to see what the weather's going to do, how the fishing is. I mean, I had so many phone calls on that trip today, so it would surprise me if it doesn't book up entirely by the very end. If fishing holds up and if the weather holds up. I'm just looking at the long-range forecast. November 3rd is a long ways out there, and it's hard to rely on a weather forecast for that, but it's forecast to be gorgeous, flat calm. Going to have a little wind this weekend, not anything to scare anybody away. Going to get a little breezy this weekend, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's going to be great. So hope you are going to jump on that one. Patrick Harnjack is up there with his wife, Sarah, and they are saying, good evening, gentlemen, from snowy Montana. How about that? We have almost 2 feet of snow, and it's currently a very chilly 14 degrees.
So you're digging us in the T-shirts, flip-flops, and shorts and stuff. We're good. And like I said, that fishing's going to go on. You said November 3rd is, well, it's only about a week, a little more than a week.
Yeah, right. It's a week from Friday.
Right? Yeah. So they're not going anywhere.
A week from tomorrow.
You're going to have great fishing.
Phenomenal,
I
think,
and
right?
You guys should call in. I mean, the fishing it doesn't get any better. I haven't seen it like this in a long, long time.
All right, well, good stuff. Yeah. Hey, if you want to book that trip, you go to horizoncharters.com. And then scan down, look for the November 3rd trip with Friedman Adventures, and it would be great to have you on board with us. Ken Trenholm, who caught the largest bluefin tuna on our last trip on board the Horizon and was a lot of fun to fish with, says hello, Friedman Adventure family. Phil, looking forward to seeing you on the 3rd. Not more than I'm looking forward to seeing you, Ken. MJM, howdy, Phil. Danny, wishing everyone limit the fish through the new year.
Absolutely.
He might be onto something there.
Absolutely. And listen, folks, I'm a hardhead, but I still think, unless we get some serious cold fronts coming through, they still have a tremendous biomass of anchovy down here, and mainly on the inside. Well, all over. But I still think there's a shot on albies. I'm hard-headed. But I'm going to tell you, I think there's still a shot based on that, and based on the albacore like that cooler water anyway. So I think there's a good
Danny, I hope you
and
are
boy, people
right.
they would come out of the woodwork.
I would do
somersaults. We're all kind of beat up with the bluefin and Dorado, and as great as that is, people will come out of the woodwork if the albies show. I guarantee you that.
All right, I'm feeling good about this now. Again,
absolutely.
I've got a bet with Scott Buchanan still, so I got to win this.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well,
I need a couple hundred albacore.
You got a couple months now. You got a couple months to get it.
Puck Hughes says he's already booked on the November 3rd trip, so yes, I have to watch how I pronounce Puck Hughes' name. I'm very careful about that.
Based on the hockey-based, right?
Actually, you could pronounce
I'll leave it at that.
Another way, but I choose to do Puck Hughes. 540 Slinger, that is our dear friend Jeff Yeomans. Jeff, it's great to see you. Hello, Danny and Phil. Phil, congratulations on your 5-day charter on the Independence. Jeff, it was really a great trip. Thank you so very, very much. I deeply appreciate that. Danny, as I looked out, we're in, I think 4 out of the 5 days, we were in like 8-hour drifts every day. And I looked out and there's 8 other boats in drifts. And they're spread way out. So I'm thinking, man, there's a lot of fish.
There's an area.
There's got to be a lot of fish here.
Oh, yeah.
And the crazy thing is, just as an example, we're in a drift on 20 to 40 pound yellowfin. About a mile from us is catching straight bluefin. Another guy just hit a kelp for 100 Dorado. It's so weird how this is all.
It's awesome.
Yeah, right?
It's awesome. I'm sorry. It's that smorgasbord. How does it get any better than that? I mean, look at our calendars, folks. We're going into November. Most people are getting ready for Christmas, and here we're still tying, fly line rigs up for tuna, yellowtail, Dorado. Come on.
And Danny is right. Most people are thinking about Christmas. Don't forget about the Friedman Adventures Christmas party. Danny will be there. I will be there December the 2nd at the Redondo Beach Rod and Gun Club. We have an awesome meal for you. If you're a Friedman Adventure Patreon member, you are free. Your meal is free, and all the good times are free. I hope you can all make it. It's going to be a lot of fun. You do have to reserve, even if you are a Patreon member. Just send me a text, 657-227-6459, and reserve your Christmas party, whatever it is. Make sure you attend. I'm trying to talk Scott Buchert into being an elf, but he's not going for it.
Oh, come on, Scott.
Yeah, no sense of humor.
For the team.
Yeah, thank you.
What a venue. The Redondo Beach Club.
Talk about that.
It's got such history. The guys are awesome. You guys will love it. But, just the fact that that's been around forever, and they had the foresight back in those days to buy that property, and it's a big clubhouse. But it's got so much history and tradition to it, folks. Just being there, you got that vibe, So come on down. It's well worth it. We've been there a lot. We broadcast down there.
Yes.
But it's just awesome place. Awesome place.
Live free, die free. Tons of people watching, Danny. Lots of people on here tonight. They love your show. Never give up. Albacore can bite in November.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
Brian Pearson, what's up, everybody? I hope everyone's doing okay. Puck you, the name is from Dave Chappelle's skit from years ago. Okay, there you go. Sometimes my contemporary knowledge is not 100%, so thank you for informing me. Ken Trenholm, Phil, talk Danny into going on the Horizon trip. Danny's invited. It would be awesome to fish with him. You should go, Danny. You have to check your calendar.
Check your calendar. Yep, you bet.
Yeah, definitely. MJM Phil, how do I book your holiday event tickets? And MJM, just send me a text and let me know how many people in your party, and I'll get back to you. Once again, that is 657-227-6459. If you need me to repeat it, I'm happy to do it. 540 Slinger. Phil, hopefully we will see you on the water November 4th. I'll be on the Pride. Oh, my God. Hey, Jeff, that's perfect timing. Yeah, definitely. Hope we see you guys out there. And, of course, I send you my best and wish you a great trip. Brian Pearson, fish for fish, not boats. And you've seen what happened.
Fish for fish, not boats.
Fish for
In other words, just don't pot a boat.
I guess, maybe. Brian, can you explain that?
Yeah, you're going to have to keep me in on that. I ran boats, but I never thought about it. Well, you know what?
Fish for fish.
As a sport boat, yeah, we had a lot of pots that would just assume that we're on fish, and they'd run and just shut down on you, So, yeah, I get that. But, everybody now, you got decent fish finding equipment, you don't have to do that. Respect all the boats, whether you're a small boat or a sport boat. You just got to respect the space. Give everybody a natural drift, so you're not impacting their natural drift. And just it's a big ocean. Those fish will spread. So just be courteous, and everybody will be happy.
All right, sounds very good. Hey, Richie Rich says his little brother yesterday caught a 19.5-inch striper in King Harbor. What a rare catch! Wow, that is so cool.
That is rare. You do see a few every now and then, but yeah, who knew? It's one of those years.
Tell your little brother or you to shoot me that photo so I can have it on the morning briefing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Tomorrow morning.
That is pretty cool.
Daniel Lightfoot. Oh, we love Daniel Lightfoot.
Yeah.
He's the best. He says, Michael says there will definitely be albacore. By the way, Dan Lightfoot jumped on the carnivore diet. He's kicking my butt. He'd have to
That's awesome.
He can put on.
Wow.
I think he's lost 48 pounds. He's off all his diabetes medicines.
Oh
He's
my God,
feeling
that's
so
awesome.
energetic,
That
and
is
I
so
think it's
awesome.
like less than 3 months.
Wow, that is so awesome.
Dan, way to go.
Cool.
Really happy
That
with
is
you.
so good.
All right, Brian Pearson, YSWG. Do you know what that acronym stands for? My pop culture, you're exposing me for not
Not a
knowing.
clue.
YS.
You got to get the big crayon out for us, old guys.
Brian, yeah.
Get the big crayon out for us. Come
We're
on.
pleading ignorance, and I do that many, many times every single day.
Okay.
All right, hello, lovely, says Current Jam. Historically, how long does the tuna action stay hot for private boaters?
Well, it depends on your range. Depends on the
Well,
weather.
that's
If you're a
true. Yeah,
smaller
right.
boat, you can get it. Like I said, I keep looking back to '84 when we had the albacore in the channel. So that one went late. I mean, because I remember hauling the Cherokee up here, bringing it up to Dinko's yard for some servicing, then taking it back down to San Diego. So it was late in the year, and I got to think it was November. And I can remember trolling back, and my grandma got an 85-pound albacore on the on the troll.
Yeah.
So you just not an 85, excuse me, a 55. But that was the year that Fran Kennedy had that her big albie.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, man, there was
World
some
record.
incredible
Yeah,
catches that
yeah,
year.
they was
Danny,
unbelievable.
you want to know my
Unbelievable.
story on that? I was watching that. What year was that?
1984.
So it was before 976 tuna.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was doing in '84.
yeah.
Whether I was selling insurance or still going to. I think I was going to school. So I couldn't. I was going to Loyola,
Yeah.
and I couldn't take anymore. And this guy Ray Millman, he goes, "I got my boat. We're ready to go." We go. It was the freaking day that whole bite shut off. It was the
You
day.
shut us off.
Yeah, me again. Me again. It was
We
the
used to call them
day.
the black clouds.
Nobody. I mean, the day before
Yeah.
there was 100 of those big albacore.
Oh my God, yeah,
And the
it's
day
crazy.
we went,
Yeah.
it was
Oh, my
over,
God.
man. Let me tell you. All right. Yeah. So Current Jam. I mean, historically, for private boaters, tuna, we're in different times now. I mean, because we're
everything's
gonna ride this right through the first of the year, if you ask Danny and
Oh
I.
yeah. Well, look, listen. I mean, from what we gather from the skippers now, with the amount of squid on the banks now, if you're a bluefin, I mean, yellowfin might head south for a little warmer water, but when you got that feed, you got chovies, you got deans, and mainly the squid. Those bluefin aren't going anywhere. The yellowtail aren't going to go anywhere. The Dorado may head south with the yellowfin, but you know what? There's going to be phenomenal fishing, folks. I'm telling you, unless we have a drastic change, I don't see anything. I don't see those fish going anywhere. They're going to be here.
Yeah, and in the fall, that's when we get this variety, Danny. We certainly saw that on the Independence, man.
Absolutely.
We had a lot of skipjack, too.
And you'll get the highest quality fish, Phil, because the fat content is at its highest about that time too.
A lot of
that's a big
skippies were mixed in with it. Warm
skippies
water
too.
indicator again.
Wow.
Water
Yeah,
temp
there
where
you
we
go.
were fishing, Danny.
Yeah.
Because I know this is important to you. 69.
Wow.
69 degrees. So.
For almost November.
Right.
They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think you're right,
They're
man.
not going anywhere.
November the 3rd, everybody. HorizonCharters.com. Join us. It's going to be a fabulous trip. Current Jam is explaining fishing for boats going to where the masses are without knowing that there are fish there. So in other words, I guess you look at the tracking, you see where all the boats are.
Oh, you're fishing for boats and not for fish.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you definitely want to
Well,
fish
it's
for
good.
fish.
But
Sometimes
it's
those
nice to have.
correlate together, though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Everybody's
yeah.
where the fish are. But, okay, there you go. Brian Pearson, Captain Dave Hansen. Maybe that acronym is Dave Hansen's.
Oh,
We still don't know what
okay.
it is, though. Okay, Puck
get
you.
it.
I watch your morning briefings. How do you catch the sandworms for surf fishing? Are they same as I believe they were called tugworms? Are they the same? I don't know about whether they're called tugworms or not. But what you do, Puck you, I'm sorry to be so nasty to you. Just kidding. You go and you find holes in the sand, and if you have any knowledge about where there were a lot of grunion, and I know this is getting a little bit complicated, but like for example, where I live in Surfside, down by the jetty, the grunion are solid down there, and they lay their eggs there, and that's what sandworms eat. So you dig down and you keep looking and looking and looking and looking, and then you'll see a sandworm. You get down there, grab it, pull it out of the sand. Sometimes you get a whole nest of them, and they're all together. You can, however, Puck you, if you go on our YouTube channel where you are right now, search looking for sandworms or digging for sandworms on Friedman Adventures, and I did a whole video on exactly how to do it and showed you how to do it. So you might want to check that out. Daniel Lightfoot says this year. I think he's talking about how long he's been on the diet, but I'm not sure.
Oh, cool, cool.
Mike Trunk, what's your take? Uh-oh, here we go with the politics. I don't know why it's politics. It should be science. What's your take on global warming? You want to take it first?
You know, I think things just cycle. And I think things where they start pushing certain agendas, I think it becomes more political than just a natural deal where these things will cycle through time. But when you want to make it your agenda, you're going to push it harder. So it depends how much control you have on the media for the most part. That's my take on it. I take whatever rolls. We've seen from El Niños to cold years and everything, and each one has its own little attribute. On the colder years, we've had better albacore fishing. And El Niños, God, the tuna, the exotics. Hey, we take whatever Mother Nature gives us. That's what fishermen do. We adjust. We can't change that. You have to go with the flow and just adjust. Be able to adjust to whatever Mother Nature's, giving us. Whatever they're dealing us at the time. You just got to be ready for it.
Yeah, so my take on it is, yes, there is some global warming going on. It could be natural causes. One thing that troubles me, no matter who you ask, if they're on the global warming and it's man-made, and if we don't change our ways, we're going to be dead in 30 seconds. One thing that bothers me is whenever I say to them, can you explain to me what you mean? They never say, here are these particular evidence of what I'm talking about. What they say is, oh, you're a climate denier. And then that's supposed to end the conversation. Or you're a racist, or and that is not what we call discourse. Discourse and the scientific method is talking these things out civilly. We don't have to have a fist fight over global warming, but I would like to know what your evidence is, and I would like to counter that evidence and go back and forth. Instead, oh, you're a climate denier. I hear that with kids that are 18, 19, 20.
Well, and they're just brilliant.
Yeah.
They can't figure out what gender they are anyway. But here's the deal. Now you got me going. I look back over the years on how the biologist would make decisions on certain things. Well, you know how much credit I give them? None. As far as I'm concerned, they're morons. They're going to take back and look at things in retrospect. And I've done this. I've seen this in real time. And I can remember Russ Iser calling me up, and I think I've mentioned this before, telling me we got to go up to UC Santa Barbara to go combat, something they're trying to implement in these closures. And it's based on these kids in college trying to get grant money, not based on any knowledge that they have, which they had none, by the way, and they were wrong on everything they did. But yet, this is the state of California, and they endear their University of California system, which I went to, and I don't give back to the alumni because of the CRAP that they put me through,
I know what that acronym means.
Oh, yeah,
CRAP.
yeah.
I got that.
It has
one.
to do with college. Anyway, But no, they changed the rules by what they want. And I'm going to just give you an example. My senior year, I was 16 credits shy of a double degree. Where I could have popped into not only economics, but the economics was completed. But if I got 16 more units, 4 classes in sociology, I could have a double degree. So I did it, and I did, and I got it. So I technically, had the 2 degrees. They wouldn't award it to me, even though I hit what I had. I had all the requirements, and they said, "Well, you made a declaration too late." So if you're going to keep changing the goal line, there you go, UC. And now we're seeing the knuckleheads on their campuses all around the country. Oh boy, Phil, now you got me on my soapbox.
I'm telling you, man.
But yeah, do I deal with that? Well, no, I don't. Unfortunately, I use a little common sense and just knowledge and history, and all they're doing is trying to generate grant money. So, as far as that goes, I'm going to tell you the truth. They're going to tell you whatever it's going to take to get them grant money.
Yeah, that's another thing that bugs me. There's
Oh,
way
yeah.
too much
It's
money. Whenever
ridiculous.
money's involved in anything,
Yeah, it gets
follow the
convoluted.
money.
It gets convoluted,
Yeah.
big time.
You got to watch it. I'm not even saying, I'm open to someone proving to me that all the global warming that's taking place is man-made, and here's what we got to do. Show me. Don't
Yeah.
call me a climate denier or whatever other dumb
And
thing.
you don't believe in things cycle over time, which
Yeah.
I've seen being on the water all those years.
Yep.
So
Yep.
there you go.
All right, Noli Ann, who
Hey,
happens to
Noli.
be, you know Noli?
Yes.
What a super
awesome.
good guy.
Yes, he is.
Noli, good evening, fine sirs. Oh yeah, I know you know him because he was on the Apollo, and he's
Yes.
such a good guy. Good
Fished with my
fishing.
brother, I think, last week too. I think, yeah.
Good fishing going on. Phenomenal. I eat a lot of fish and a friend. Oh, he eats his friend too. Oh, no. Cannibalism, huh, Noli? I never thought that about you. Mentioned to me something about, oh, my friend mentioned to me, okay, he's not eating his friend, mentioned to me about checking my mercury levels. What do you think about this? I know a guy, Bob Osborne, who tells
yeah, I
me,
remember.
yeah, you know Bob.
Yeah.
And he's, into the science and everything else. This is what he says, Noli. He says you'd have to eat 3 semi-trucks full of fish to get your mercury levels anywhere near where it's going to be a problem. And that eating a Big Mac at McDonald's has got to be way worse for you than a fresh piece of fish
I
from
gotta
the
agree.
sea. What do you
Hey,
think?
Noli, I agree 100%. Keep eating your fish. My grandmother, who I fished with from the time I was 4 years old, she and my grandpa ate fish basically every day. They eat the fish that we caught. I didn't eat a lot of fish back then. I should have, but I didn't. She lived to 97, so you know what? You're good to go, bud.
All right, very good. Hey, I don't even know Danny. I don't know if I told you this or not. Did you know Eddie passed away? I may
Oh,
not have.
yes.
Did I
Yes.
tell you?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, I've
I
heard.
wasn't
Oh,
sure.
my God, yeah.
Anyway, the reason I'm bringing that up is
Yeah.
his memorial service. Everybody will be November the 11th, from 4 to 8 p.m. at All Souls Cemetery in Long Beach, California. November 11th, 4 to 8 p.m. at All Souls Cemetery in Long Beach, California, and everybody you can all attend. If you'd like to be there to support his family, that would be fantastic. Hey, hit that like button, or Danny and I are going to break into tears. You don't want to see 2 grown men crying here. Daniel Leanos, hello, Dan and Phil. Driving, can't talk. Hey, Daniel, thanks for joining us.
That's cool.
Really
Don't worry.
appreciate it. Current Jam says, I noticed a lot of blue sharks, which I think is a very good thing, Danny. Maybe you could expand on that. But he says he sees a lot of them being caught. Are they good eating?
I would release those because they have like an ammonia.
God, they do.
They have an ammonia to them. They're not one of the ones that we consider edible. If you get a thresher, yes. Bonita shark are good eating, yes. And as for the rest of them, I think some of the guys have eaten hammerhead. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm not as much a big shark guy. I mean, there's certain ones that are, like I said, they're good.
I ate blue shark once because
Oh my God, really?
Sean Morgan, you remember him? He sent it home and said it was a thresher shark. He sent it home with my
Did
kids.
you get the ammonia out of
I
that?
looked at it and I go, that's not, I looked at the skin on it. I go, it's a blue shark. And so I soaked it in milk. And
So you had
because
ammonia and
I
milk.
didn't want to just throw it out. It was edible. But yeah, I'm with you. Let them go, right?
Well, the only way to cook a blue shark, folks, is you fillet it all out.
Yeah.
Put it on the plank, chop it all up, throw the fish out, and eat the plank.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. That's how you do a blue shark, guys.
I think Danny's absolutely right. Hello, McFly. Hey, guys, just saying hello. Hey, it's good to see you. McFly, some help here. Torium 60, you're getting way, Sam De La Torre on Monday. Hello, McFly, but maybe Danny knows this. Torium 16 HG versus the 20 HG for surface iron. 30, 40, top shot of 75 yards. What size reel is preferred?
The old guys used to use the wider ones, which would have been a 30. But I like it. I actually, what am I saying? When I have mono, I do use the 30 because it is wider. I do back it with a lot of spectra. But for most surface iron, the 20 is fine, especially if you're throwing a lot of spectra as opposed to the mono. And you got to remember, us old guys fish the old, we fished the 9-footers and, with a 30 size reel because we were fishing straight mono back then. So, you can scale it down. A 20 is fine for that. And I love the feel better with a narrow reel anyway, you know. And sometimes you could, to me, sometimes when you're out there, you can overcast a little bit, you know. So, you know, you make your nice cast, throw it to the boils, and I think you concentrate on that more than just throwing straight distance. You know, I think you're gonna be fine. But
All right.
yeah,
Good stuff. Tangle Diver says, rest in peace. Eddie, thank you so
Absolutely.
very, very much. Hello, McFly says, my thoughts and prayers for Eddie, for sure. Steve Bermudez, who I saw at the Fibbers Christian Club the night before I went on board the Independence. I went over and gave a little speech over there. What a lovely bunch of people.
these guys down in Costa Mesa.
Yeah.
I've done.
They're
some
great
of them
people.
before, yes,
They're really great. And I saw
Awesome
Steve
guys.
there and his
Awesome
lovely
guys.
wife.
Yes.
And I like to
Terrific,
speak
terrific
Spanish
guy.
with Steve's wife and make fun of Steve. You know, it's a little hobby I
Nice
have.
guy.
Easy to do, let me tell you. So he says, Turner's Rod and Reel Club is having a memorial for our friend Will Ebersman on the Endeavor after the Thanksgiving trip. Did you know Will?
You know, I think
You
I've met
might
him,
have.
I think I've met
He
him.
was just an
Maybe
angler,
some
but
fish, yeah.
he was on my radio show. We called him Mensa Man. He actually was a member of Mensa. The guy, I mean, I wouldn't even, I couldn't compete with him intellectually. However,
Yeah.
streetwise, he wasn't, you know, so I could screw with him there. You know, like I'd be able to say, what? Seriously? You're going to go do that? You got to be nuts. But like people could call in on that radio show or
Yeah.
anywhere, and they could ask a question from pop culture to nuclear science, and inevitably, Will would have the answer.
A walking encyclopedia,
God, he
like a
was-
Steve Carson type deal, right?
He was brilliant.
Yeah,
He was
that's
also a funny guy, and we had a lot of great times in Mexico. And there was never, ever a time, Danny, where we were doing a charity event or a kids fishing trip or something like that where Will wasn't there.
Oh, that's
and he passed away while I was in China.
Oh, geez.
And
Yeah.
you know, he came to China to play with me, to travel and do, you know. So we did the whole thing, and I thought he was okay. I noticed he was getting tired, so I go, what's going on with you? And he goes, no, I'm good. Doctors have it all under control. And I said, okay, and he was doing fine. And then he went home, and his wife called me and said he has like 3 days. I go, what? And then I said, do you want me on a flight? I'll be on a flight. And she said, Will said that it's not necessary. There's no use. And he passed away, and man, what a great guy. I carry him in my heart. He was a hilarious guy. He was a lovely, giving, wonderful person, and it was
it's sad to lose.
so
good
great to hear
guys.
that, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that. Hello, McFly says, okay, thank you, Torium20. Emmanuel Navedo, hi from Florida, Emmanuel. We know that, man. It's always good to have you join us. I had somebody from Taiwan today, but I'll get right back to you, Emmanuel. I had a guy from Taiwan who said, hey, I met a friend of yours yesterday on a hike here in Taiwan. His name's Terry. I knew exactly what he's talking about. A guy from England whom I taught with, who's a super nice guy. I loved teaching with Terry, and he said, I love to fish. Terry turned me on to your channel.
Yeah.
He's a Taiwanese guy. I'm coming to fish with you with my son. So
That's
the reach of this show is pretty
That's
incredible.
awesome.
We got Emmanuel now in Florida. We had a guy.
Yeah.
It's really, we had Montana tonight. So he says he's going on the Legend for a 3-day trip. First time ever. When is that trip, Emmanuel? But if it's any time in the next month or so, it should be awesome.
Oh, you should have a good trip. You're gonna have to come. You know, coming from Florida, if you don't have the gear, probably the best thing to do is rather than buy it, is rent it from one of the landings and tell them you need an outfit for the bluefin. You need an outfit, for all around live bait. Fishing for yellowtail, fishing for dorado. But you make sure you want to have a bigger outfit just in case, because there's some units out there, folks.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
make sure you're prepared. Yeah.
Emmanuel, I should tell you, I don't know, I think it was on this 5-day trip that the Legend came up a couple of times, and Steve Taft, who runs the boat, came up a couple of times. And I've never heard so many positive comments about how Steve runs the boat, how hard he works, how courteous and efficient the crew is. So
That's awesome.
I
That's great.
I can tell you you're on a really great boat.
That's awesome.
Just from what I've heard. I haven't had the pleasure to fish with Steve, but I'll have to do that here one of these days. Really, really soon. I wish you the very, very best.
Yeah, they'll help you out too. I mean, if you're coming from Florida, it's totally different fishing. If it's your first time, get tight as you can, and tell the crew it's your first time, and hopefully they will take you by the hand and walk you through all the tricks and everything to make it enjoyable for you.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And the key to that, Danny, is don't keep it a secret that it's your first time. Walk up to the crew and let them know.
What do I need? What do I have to? What knots do I? How do I set it up? And they'll help you out.
Because as a
all the
crew
crews-
member, you're working all the time. There's nothing better than fly lining a bait for somebody and hanging a fish and handing it to them if
Absolutely.
that's what they need.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because as we used to say as crew guys, Danny, the fun part is setting the hook. All that
Absolutely.
stuff after that here, you
That's
can
right.
have, you fight it.
That's right.
Give me another rod, I'll hook you another one.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
make sure you make that clear to everybody. All right, Puck, you said I went full spectra. I used to use spectra as backer, then mono to fluorocarbon. Should I go back to the spectra, backer, mono to fluoro?
I talked about this a little earlier. It depends on your species because of the bluefin, their eyesight. You want a length of mono and then top shot it with fluoro. And it could be, you get up in a wide open enough bite, you can get bit with straight spectra, with a short fluorocarbon top shot, and maybe even straight, fluorocarbon. Straight spectra. But I have not the percentages, and to have a real successful trip, even if they're biting, I would still put a little top shot of fluoro on there and maybe a little bit of mono. It depends on how touchy they are. If it's wide open, you can go full spectra to fluoro, but it depends. I think we told the story about the bluefin, right? Where you get that progression on our trip last year with all the captains on the Freedom.
Yeah.
I started out with a short top shot of fluoro with straight spectra, and I was making long casts. I was throwing a 9-foot rod. I was out casting everybody with a Dean. But they're bluefin, and they can see that. They can see that spectra. There's only about 6 feet of spectra. 6 feet of fluorocarbon, and even though I was outside, my bait was going down and away, it did not get bit. So I'm in my head immediately. It took about 2 casts. I said, forget it. Went to my 25. I had a little bit of mono on it, but you got to go through the gamut, and you have to figure it out. And I finally on my 30 pound. Thank God I hooked them on 30. I had fluorocarbon with a longer length of mono, and then spectra. So it depends, but. Bluefin are going to be your biggest challenge. They're the touchiest, and coming from Florida, and having not fished that, they're going to be your biggest challenge as far as your bite. So keep that in your head. Yellowfin, albacore, dorado, they're not as finicky, and you could hook them. You could hook them with the short top shots of fluoro to spectra a lot of times. But the bluefin, they definitely have the best eyes in the business, folks.
All right, very good. Hey, El Patron has a trip, and they've discounted it. It's an overnight trip. It's leaving Saturday night right here from 22nd Street Landing. Only 10 anglers, Danny, on that trip. You can give them a call right now. They're in the office, and tell them you heard it here on Danny's show, 310-832-8304. Get on the El Patron. They're going to have a great trip.
And they get them. They get them, too, so.
Oh, and hey, Will, who used to run the El Patron, he's over on the El Dorado now.
Yeah.
He sent me some messages today. I don't want to screw this up. I think he was around 60 mixed fish earlier today. He said it was really, really good.
That's good.
Beautiful weather, and he had mixed bluefin and yellowfin tuna. What we've been talking about, how great it is right now.
It's awesome. Get out there while you can, folks. Come on. Coming on November, folks. How good is that?
Jaime Fernandez Jr., good evening, guys. How are those Halco trolling lures? Salute to all our men and women serving in the USA, past and present. Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
Jaime, thank you for saying that and pointing that out, my friend.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guys deployed right now
Yes.
on the Mediterranean.
I know.
And everything.
I mean,
So
it's
we pray for them, and we thank you. We thank you for keeping us safe.
Yep. And we thank
All
them
of them.
for making the United States military the most awesome force that has ever existed on the face of the earth.
Yeah,
Not to be messed with.
yeah.
Let's hope it stays that way. So, Halco trolling lures. Isn't that the trolling lure
That's
we're
the
trolling on the
we're
American
trolling.
Angler?
And I don't know how you could beat them. I've seen them work. It was the only ones that I've seen catch bigger bluefin with at be coming off of sport boats and not yachts where you could drag the Halcos, the Mad Max real fast and burn up a lot of fuel. They're the most effective ones I've seen at speeds on sport fishing boats. So yeah, I was impressed. I was impressed with the Halcos. Yeah.
All right, you may hear those guys outside
They're all
talking.
getting
We
ready
may
to
be
go fish,
picking some
man.
of that up, but man, there's a lot of excitement around the
yeah.
landing tonight. The Freedom is
Absolutely.
going tonight. I don't know if anybody else is going, but these guys are shucking it up out here and having a good time.
And they should.
And
They're going fishing, Phil.
A couple of those guys had to come in and meet you before the show, man. They
That's always
couldn't
fun.
believe it. And then you spent a great deal of time talking to them
It's always
about
fun.
how to
That's what
improve
it's all
their
about.
game.
That's what it's all about, folks. That's why you guys are here. Call, hit me with anything. If I don't know, I'm not going to BS you. I'll tell you I don't know. But if I've experienced it or seen success in certain areas, I'll key you in on it.
All right, hit Danny with anything, especially that like button. Just push that thing out. There it goes, right there, Danny. It's going up as
Beautiful.
we speak. Push
Thank you,
that
guys.
baby up there to 50 right now. And don't forget to share this podcast. You can share it right now. See that share button right to the right of it? You can click on that and share it with a friend. They can watch Danny live right now. Subscribe to the channel and tick that little bell. You'll be notified when there is new content available for you all. All right, Richie Rich, Phil, where do I send the pic of the striper? I thought it said stripper there. I'm glad it's a striper. You get me in trouble
this is a family
with my
show.
esposa.
This is a family show, Phil. Come on.
Felipe, what is this photo on your telefono? I'm gonna kill you. You send that? No, don't do my email. It's much better to text me. Richie Rich, you ready? You got a pen, paper? Ready? 657-227-6459. Text that photo and please include some information like your brother's name and blah, 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 blah. And that sounds like morning briefing material to me. Rick Slater, hello. Great to see Phil catch and use your technique, rod down angle. Phil, did you need a 2-speed on any of those fish? Well, first of all, Danny, I told you, man, I was watching a guy. In fact, it was Greg Bates. And Greg came along and he was having back problems. Really bad.
Yeah,
Poor guy.
Yeah.
So I just looked at him. I go, you want me to finish that for you? Because he was, he had too big of a bend in his rod and everything else. So I just took it and I fished the way you talk about anyway. I just started turning the handle and here it came. And then I stopped, take a little line, started turning the handle, keep pointed pretty much right down at the fish. And then laid it out perfect for the deckhand. And it was fun, man. I don't get to do that much anymore. I don't
for
realize.
us older guys, we last a lot longer when you're pulling like
Heck
that. Let me
yes.
tell you.
Yeah, because I watched.
Let that rod kill the fish.
I watched him, and he was really struggling and trying to catch his breath. And I pretty much was just like, I wasn't even. You know what I mean?
You got to fight the fish and not your tackle, folks.
It's
And that's what
technique,
you have to
folks.
Technique, and there's reasons why we use certain things. Spectras, 2 speeds. In my case with my rods, they're all graphites. Because the recovery is much faster. So there's reasons for all that.
Yeah, no
And
question.
it's lighter, so it's more comfortable to carry around.
No question, Rick. When that fish started doing its circle, popping into low gear, and it's all yours, man. No problem at all. Thank you, Rick. Live free, die free. Steve, Mite Mouse, and crew on the Legend are great. Yeah, I mean, I hear that all the time. Live free, die free.
Yep.
I hear it all the time. I need to go over there and shoot a video with those boys one of these days because, I mean, it's just, and I'm not asking. They're volunteering that information
There
to
you
me.
go.
So
Absolutely.
it's got to be a great
Absolutely.
operation. Emmanuel Navedo. I have an Abbott HXJ Raptor with 65-pound braid, and a HXW52 Raptor with 100-pound braid on an Akuma PHCC 741 extra heavy rod. What other setup should I rent? I would talk to the landing. Get their recommendation.
Well, you got the heavier stuff. I think the heavier stuff, you got it covered.
Yeah.
But you're going to need a bait stick and you're fishing. Well, like 65-pound braid.
With
I mean,
25
you're going to be able to top shot anything.
Yeah,
from 25 to 40 on it.
Yeah.
So
it gets picky. You're going with
pretty
the
covered.
25. Yeah.
Or if you don't want to change the top shots, then add another outfit. But that's you're covered, and all you got to do now is change your top shots of fluorocarbon. You know, so
I got to give a shout out to Fisherman's Landing because there was a guy. Where did he? There was a guy on the Independence Tour. He flew in from somewhere. I think it was up in Northern California, and you know, these guys on these long range trips, they come with enough stuff to, you know, if they get stranded on an island, they can survive for 6 years.
yeah,
So
yeah,
he walked into the office and said, "What do I need to buy for my trip?" And perfect opportunity if you're not an ethical person to say, "Oh my God, you need those."
yeah. But
43 of those
Doug
night
and those
jigs.
guys are all very. They're very.
They
good.
said,
They've been around forever.
Here's the hooks you need. Here's a couple of fluorocarbon. I don't think you need anything more. I think you'll be good with that. And he got out of there for less than $100. And and you know what? I watch guys. Whatever hooks you need, an assortment of hooks and some fluorocarbon. And I mean, one guy said, "I brought 12 rods and fished with 2." I don't know why I never learned. I used to bring, you know, I was fishing on the
Yeah, I think I
Conquest.
still no, maybe not that.
My
many,
brother
but
and I
do.
used to bring
I'd be
so many
afraid of
rods,
that.
you know, so I get all that, and it's, you
Yeah.
know, you got it, you might as
Yeah.
well bring it.
Yeah.
But hats off to Fisherman's Landing for,
Well, you know, there's a reason why all those tackle shops, even here too at 22nd Street, and these guys know, you know, what's working. They're on it every day, folks. You know, they are on top of all that, and they're gonna get the information from the crew as they come up the dock, as you're unloading fish, from the passengers. So yeah, listen to what they tell you. They're not gonna sell you a bill of goods. They're honest and they're good. And they want you to catch fish.
David Alcantar says, "October and November are my deer hunting season, and I'm itching to get on about seeing all these fish counts." Wow, I get it,
Yeah,
David.
yeah.
By the way, best of luck with your deer hunting endeavors. I wish you all the very, very best on
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
I know what you mean, though, man. There's a lot of really good fishing going on.
Yep.
Puck you, rod suggestions for a Shimano Speedmaster 12, 2-speed, trying to get in between with a Daiwa 35 heavy and a 9-foot rod.
You know, not real familiar with any of those anymore. You know, but they're all almost all the tackle out there. You know, any of the name brands, your Shimano's, your Daiwas, you name it, Accurates, your Abbots. They're all awesome reels. You know, I really have to pull on your rod to tell you which one I would dial it in with, you know, and match it up with. And that's one thing you might want to go into a tackle shop, you know, depending on where you live, and talk to the guys in the shop to see how they would match them up with your particular rod, because it makes a difference to match your tackle correctly.
Absolutely, Emmanuel Navedo. I have jigs from 200 to 500 grams. Should I get smaller jigs? You know, we did see that work a little bit. It's not a bad idea to have some 150, 100-gram jigs, right?
Yeah. I keep a span of everything. You know,
Yeah.
you just never know. The day you don't bring one is the day they're going to eat it, you know.
All right, Matt Tamayo says, "Phil, you need to do a how-to of Danny's fishing graphite rods." We do.
Yeah.
Matt,
Oh,
great
absolutely.
suggestion.
We'll
Thank
do
you.
that. And it really does have to do with keeping it from 90 degrees on down. I mean, because even at 90, you're losing a lot of lift from 60 degrees, okay? So, and then when you have it at 30, you're almost pointing it down. But I mean, when say you're on a big fish with lighter line, you know, you're going to have that mentality. I'm either going to break them off or I'm going to get them. I'm going to get them or break them off. If you try to play them too long on light line, they're going to either chew through. There's too many things that can go wrong. You have to have that mentality. So, you know, it has to, with getting that angle, the more you point it at it, the more pressure you're taking out of it. But it also has to do with the timing on the boat. As the boat comes up the swell, you hold and time it. As the boat goes down in the trough, you grind down and you hold, you know, and it's getting every inch you can get. And if you can keep that fish planing up, that head coming up, every time he kicks, he's going to kick at you. And it's a matter of you just keeping the grind on that reel to keep up with it, and they never get their head back down. They'll kick themselves right through the boat.
Yeah, you see that over and over.
That's the idea, folks.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
And, you know, the guys with that big bend in their rod, when their fish runs, they're getting beat up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just sitting there with my rod on the rail, just taking
you
a
got
break.
1/10 the pressure up here
Yeah.
than you do down there. So, really, folks, to me, it's educating you into fishing the right angles and taking the maximum out of the rods. And with me, I mean, so even with glass, you could, I would definitely put it down there low with glass because the recovery is slower than with graphite. So you want to take every advantage you can. So hit that angle where you're almost pointed it at it. Little bit of flex for in case it puts its head down and runs. But other than that, that's where you're going to max out your pressure.
All right, Steve Din says he's excited for the Pacific Coast and Bart Hall shows coming up. The Hall shows are in January this
God.
year.
It is coming
January.
up. I didn't even think about it. I'm thinking, oh, it's next.
Yeah, it's like
It
right
is.
around the corner,
Yeah,
right?
really. It's always great at the shows. The shows are phenomenal. For us, it has a lot to do with the camaraderie and seeing old friends and everything else. But for them, it's launching the new tackle. And there was a time I used to crawl in and out of all the booths to just look for innovative and new things. In fact, when I got off the sport boats, you remember Bob Sarver? He was the editor for Peterson's Fishing Magazine.
Yeah.
He would fly us to the shows.
Yeah.
And I would walk the shows and, the shows at ICAST shows and stuff like that. You go through these huge shows, it takes several days to see the whole show, but I would go through and just look for innovative things. And when you go to a big show like that, you'd be lucky to get a handful or better of real innovative products, A lot of them are just renditions of the same old, revampment of the wheel, but there's times when you get something that's absolutely innovative, technically, and that will help your fishing and catching or landing, the whole deal, So you have to. The shows are great for that if they have things that are really innovative. So you can go into the booth and stay with the companies that lead with the technology and the methodology too, and you're going to get your better techniques, better tackle that are now geared for giving you that edge.
All right, Hello McFly says graphite versus composite versus e-glass for bluefin. And what length? Thank you.
Not even close. Well, this has to do with your fishing ability too, and your confidence level. But if you have a straight graphite, it will outlift, and it's still much quicker than a composite. Composite has glass. It's got that cushion, but that weight is a deterrent to performance. And so, if you have a choice between being in a stealth all graphite flighter or one that's with fiberglass, give me the extra speed and maneuverability on the straight graphite.
Yeah.
And that's your same analogy. Yeah, it's going to be a little more expensive. You have to know how to fish it. If you high stick something like that, well, it's going to blow. If you high stick it, that's telling me that you don't know how to fish. Okay, because why would you get 1/10 the pressure up here than you do down here? So it's understanding the rod angles, which is even more important. So when you implement that, and we just talked about that not too long ago, even with the fiberglass rod, you virtually have to point the rod at the fish to get any amount of pressure comparable to something in graphite at a higher level. So it has to do with your timing on your stroke. You're using the swell as you're holding up and then winding down. It's all about the timing, cutting off the angles, and your fish is making its circle. You have to implement every little facet you can to give you that edge.
All right, very good. Hey, Quintin Trachia says, how do you guys feel about acid-wrapped rods?
I've seen it work. I mean, I see it. I've used it. I can remember using one up in Washington for throwing on muskies and stuff, and they cast really well. I grew up old school, with a conventional wrap, but I've seen it work, and it looks fine. It's just, for me, the comfort level to have all my rods rigged up the same way is important to me. Like I said, that's a newer process. I see it work. It's just, for me, I want all mine rigged to where I'm comfortable with it in the way I've been fishing for all these years. I will go with a higher tech reel and componentry and everything else. And that's a concept, with the spiral. And it's neat. It's just, not my cup of tea. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, Michael Faria asks, we discussed the possibility of a disabled trip for those of us who are on oxygen or need assistance. I was thinking about the El Patron for a disabled trip. Michael, that's something I can talk to those guys about and see if we can pull that out. It's funny that you mentioned that because Steve Hooten is a guy who's on oxygen, and he's been on 2 of our trips this year.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
And he does a great job. In fact,
Yeah.
he's on the November 3rd trip on board the Horizon again.
Oh, cool.
And he is
Cool.
such a good guy, man.
That's
He's
awesome.
really, really a good guy. So we'll work on that. Keep rattling my chain on that. We'll see what we can do. Puck Hughes says, the older I get, the more seasickness I get. You have any suggestions for the best motion sickness medication? I'll tell you, the patches, people I see that are chronically seasick, Bob Gifford is one of them, puts a patch on and never looks back. So
Yeah, boning has worked over the years
Yeah.
a lot for guys. You know,
Yeah.
You know, years and years ago, all there was Dramamine, and what was the other one? But you know, Dramamine was one of the early ones. But now the boning, yeah, they all seem to work really well.
all right, Michael says 10 would be great, and the day and a half gives us a great chance. I'm a retired captain and want to see my grandson catch his first tuna. He would be my help for this disabled trip. Man, that's
you
a
talk to the
beautiful
crew,
thing, Michael.
You let the crew know, and I guarantee on any boat, pretty much, I mean, that's going to be their goal, to make sure your grandson nails his first fish.
Michael, I mean,
And stay with them, you know, and yeah, I mean, that you just took the kid for life, you know, and your grandson, my God, grandson, can you imagine? That's all he'll write about and talk about for forever. You know?
Oh, for sure, right?
It's huge, absolutely huge.
Michael, I might suggest to you November 3rd on the Horizon. I mean, it won't be, but Steve is going to be there, and Steve is a guy who's on oxygen, so you'd have that company. Fishing's great right now. It's a weekend trip. It leaves
It's not
Friday
that far
night.
away. It's only what, 2 weeks, a week and a half.
A week from tomorrow.
Yeah, there you
A
go.
week from tomorrow.
No, they're not
so
going
there's
anywhere.
your trip, man. And
They
you
are
got,
not going anywhere.
You got Steve on board. You can make that happen for your grandson a week from Friday. And for anybody else out there who wants to join us, you go to horizoncharters.com and scan down to November the 3rd and book your trip online. Michael, I mean, there's your trip right there, man. I don't know what your schedule is like, but if you can make that one, I highly recommend making that happen for your grandson a week from Friday. Aaron says, I'd be willing to help with that trip. I have a buddy that's in a wheelchair that I've helped before in the past. That's part of the Friedman Adventure family.
that's
People
awesome.
like Aaron,
That is so cool.
who are really
Absolutely.
great human beings. Aaron,
Absolutely.
you're number one. We'll see what we can do on that for sure. Live free, die free. Puck you. Oh, he's talking to Puck you. So those guys can have their little conversation there. Oh, he's giving them some ideas on how to not get seasick. So thank
Use
you.
the patch
Live free,
and stuff.
die free.
You know, I got a funny one in December when I'm going to have Gary Loomis come down here in the studio, and we're having a get together, you know. And it was funny. We took him on his first trip on saltwater. Took him on my old boat on the Mustang. We filmed it with Dan Hernandez, right? And so he gets seasick, so he wore a patch. So every now and then, while he's laying in the bunks, we would take the patch off.
Oh no, that's funny.
Oh, we mess with people. I mean, it's so funny.
That's
and,
the
and
fun
with
of
him,
this.
I mean, you know, that's all part of going out there, you know, and the stories that go back and forth between all of us, messing with each other. you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about when he gets here. We'll be in the studio here, but yeah.
Puck, you wants to know on the Horizon, do they fillet or do I need a fish processor? Last time we were on there, they filleted. I don't know if things have changed since that time. I assume they have not. Not a bad idea to check with the landing to be sure, but every time I've been on that boat, they fillet. So I think
awesome.
that's probably what
That's cool.
we can count on happening. Doug Rubin, El Sueño. Hello from La Jolla. The Yellowtail showed up today. Come on down, guys.
Oh my God!
Where'd the yellow show
Yeah.
up, man? I'm out of the loop
Yeah,
on
we're just
that,
talking
Doug.
about that. I need to catch a few. I need, you know.
Come
have
on,
to-
let us know a little bit more. We're at the islands, on the Kelps, at La Jolla. Come on, you're teasing us there, Doug. We want to know. Matt Tamayo, maybe a how-to on graphite rods on your Horizon trip. Wink, wink, LOL. I got to hire Matt, man. He's a good, he's planning out my schedule and
There you go.
coming up with some great
Yeah,
ideas.
you know,
Who
that's
knows?
true. That is true. You do handle it different. You put it
Yeah.
on the rail, you know. Even your wrap, your foregrip, you may want to cushion it, lengthen it out, lengthen it a little bit more so it does cover the rail when you're hanging it out there. So there's a few little different things too.
Perfect. We have a freshwater question from, I don't know how to pronounce that first name. Let me see. Calamari and Kayak Rentals. Notice how I jumped right past that. I couldn't pronounce it.
Okay.
And he says, most sources say that your first fly rod should be a size 5, but most of the trout in California aren't that big. What is your recommendation, Danny?
Well, the line weight has a lot to do with how it's going to cover in the conditions. Okay, so if you need to punch it through the wind, you might need more than a 5. You might go to a 6. It depends on the conditions you're flying. That you're fishing. You're fishing a spring creek area where it's pristine and no wind. You could drop down to, I fished as small as a 2 weight and 3 weight. And shorter rod, a 7.5 footer, as opposed to generally you're fishing 8.5s and 9s. So it depends on the water, the size of the river, whether it's a river, a stream, or a lake. Obviously if it's a lake, you can go to a 9-footer, and even more at times. And if you're in a float tube, you want to have it longer because you got to clear the water. You've got to remember, you're going to be sitting in water up to about here, so you're not getting the back cast that you would if you were, in a boat. So that's one of the big deals. We have a
Is this
surprise.
Chet Young?
We have a
Chet,
surprise
how are
guest,
you?
one of my old
It's
friends.
nice to see you.
He's in from Hawaii.
Good.
Chet, God, it's been good seeing you, buddy. My God, come on.
Good to see you. Long time no see.
Long time no see. He's in from Honolulu, folks. Chet, sit down.
Hold on, let me mic you up, Chet.
Yeah, we'll mic you up. But yeah, Chet, my God, we had back in the day, the travel trips. Yeah. He was one of the big innovators in some of the early travel trips and things, and we did couples trips. We did all kinds of stuff, right?
All kinds of things we did.
I think one of the best things and the most fun thing was that one year fish ties were in fashion. Remember that?
Yep.
And you did the silk screening of a yellowtail on a T-shirt. We printed, like a collar, a collar frame of the collar, and then we printed a yellowtail.
Let's get him, Chet, to sit down. I just want to tell everybody out there, hang on to your questions. Hang on, Chet, I'm going to mic you up here, but hang on to your questions, everybody, unless they're for Chet and Danny, and I'll come back and jump on here in a second. Let me mic Chet up, and then I'll let you guys listen to some people who know what they're actually talking about around here. I'm trying not to get fresh with you, Chet. Okay. All right, there you go. You're all mic'd up. Take a seat, my friend.
Thank you.
You are welcome. It's good to see you.
Good to see you folks. Yeah.
Oh my God, good having you in, Chet. What a treat. Yeah, we had some really good times.
Close to that table.
Yeah.
Okay.
Danny, he can kiss you easier that way. Go ahead, boys.
Yeah, that's aloha, man.
Aloha.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Haven't seen you in about around 40 years, I guess.
Unbelievable. But folks, one of the big innovators in travel, in fishing, from way, way back in the days. So, you see all what's going on now, but here's one of the blazers, the real trailblazers, And, God, we did trips down in Cabo. Didn't we do a bunch of that too? We had guys, back in those early days.
You just
Beach
reminded me
launches.
on one trip, significant to me also, and you were probably on that trip, I'm not sure, but I took Tanaka on his first trip to Cabo.
And with Katie?
Yeah, with Katie.
That was a perfect deal, too.
Yeah.
Because Katie never fished with us other than that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
in fact they were a little
Yes.
hesitant about going to Mexico, and so I convinced them to take one of my trips with me. I escorted them down to Cabo San Lucas,
Yeah.
and we had a good time.
We
They
used to launch
enjoyed it.
pangas from the beach and rent a panga. I mean, that was a whole different. That was exciting. That was a lot. Plus, I remember going to the taco stands and everything. It was before Cabo got expensive, right?
Yes, yes.
It was phenomenal. What a great time. We had some great early blazing times. Catalina trips, all couples trips.
Right.
Right.
I remember, well, even before that, I remember, I was a charter master for the Islanders Rod and Gun Club. In the beginning, actually, I was one of the first of the Islanders. Actually, it was belonged to the airlines. We were the Continental Airlines Rod and Gun Club. And because we had so many people from Hawaii here in LA, they decided, we took a vote and they decided to change it to Islanders Rod and Gun Club. So now it's known as Islanders Rod and Gun Club. And so I basically was in the beginning of that. And
You know, I joined the club just prior. I have a couple of T-shirts, but just prior to COVID. But I think COVID put a hurt on the meetings and things like that too. You know.
I heard that. I
Yeah,
heard that.
yeah, but yeah, it's a fun deal. They had it at that complex over Gardena City Hall over there. They had their meetings over there.
Oh yeah, in Gardena. Yeah. I actually left the club. That was around '85, mind you, and it was because I started that fishing travel business, and I couldn't devote any time to the club.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah,
yeah.
Folks, you're talking about a blazer. I mean, I got good friends like Steve Yatomi, but I'm sure everything was, patterned after things that you blazed, and they've taken it, and done different things, but still, yeah, back in those days, it was fun.
We did,
We had a lot of fun stuff.
Quite a bit of stuff in the fishing travel world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Traveled around the world. That was my job. Somebody had to do it, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, hey, I did. Here, I'm giving him some sympathy here. Let me play the violin.
So yeah, it was pretty good. I got to fish 1 week a month around the world, somewhere in the world. So
Yeah. You and Steve Yatomi now. Steve's
yeah,
taking that on.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that was a good time. But I remember the trips that we did started actually, I don't know if you remember, but started way back on the Indian with Bud Levette.
Bud. Yeah.
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 Way back when.
Right.
And then we switched over to George Mio on the New Hustler 2.
Yeah, the commander. He was my code boat.
Yeah. And then I remember on one of your previous shows you mentioned the fact that, you started using scanning sonar. And,
George was the first guy to get
and
that
I
thing
remember being in the wheelhouse with George with the scanning sonar. And the only other people I remember at the time that had scanning sonar was the salmon fishermen in Alaska. And they used to use it almost too effectively because they would wrap the nets around using the scanning sonar.
Yeah. Well,
And so it was too effective.
yeah.
know.
Well, that was the deal. Is initially it was for commercial use.
Yeah.
Commercial use with the seiners and everything else. But we were as for sport boats. George was the first one to bring it in. Now, he was using a black and white unit initially, which you had to really monitor because the blip didn't stay on like with the colors. So
Right.
it was in I think it was 81 when George and I snuck down to San Diego with the first color scanning sonars, West Mars. And boy, that changed the game. And the other part about that too is it helped integrate the fleet because at one time it was a northern versus southern boat fleet. And with the groups that George and I had, we had some awesome fishermen. So when we went down there and we smoked them, all of a sudden, hey, you want to come into our code group? And we go, no, we're doing okay. But it did change because it did help break some of the barriers between the northern and southern boats. And when I'm saying northern and southern, it's like the Civil War, but it's between the LA boats and San Diego. So it helped bring a lot of that together in time, So that was a good thing. So yeah. So you see, you were there for a lot of that blazing. A lot of those things.
The guys I was one of the guys that hung around Yules as well.
Oh
And,
yeah.
We, in fact, you mentioned my T-shirt business. I did that before travel, and I did the T-shirts for Yo and Taka back then.
Yep.
So that was early in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're getting old,
It was amazing. But in this one year, and Chet did it, we had a T-shirt, and I don't know if only you old guys will know, but these fish ties were real popular in the stores, And so we spoofed it, and we're T-shirt guys anyway. So we took the white T-shirts and he printed a fake collar, on each side, and then put a yellow tail down the middle. And you remember we wrapped it in white paper, like butcher paper from the fish market, and we went down to Day at the Docks down in San Diego, and we sold out of them.
I remember. That was,
but
I
we had
remember
fun.
that was only the second day of the docks.
It was
the
one-
second
yeah,
one.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. It was one of the first days at the docks. So it goes back, folks. You're seeing history here with Chet. Let me tell you, the second day of the docks, and then yeah,
I thought I remembered that.
it was just before Christmas too, because we had it wrapped in that fish paper, and people were. And I think we just had the sizes on the shirts marked, but we sold out of them. I mean, it was unbelievable. You know, they made unbelievable Christmas gifts. It was cute.
I
too.
think
mean,
Rose was it Rose
Yes,
that came
Rosemary
with
at
us.
San Pedro Fish.
And
She likes to send. And
She was the
Dorothy
one
and-
that came up with the idea
Yeah.
of wrapping it with
wrapping the fish paper
fish wrap.
because of San Pedro fish.
Yeah.
And then Dorothy and Matt Maddich came down. Matt's cousin is a Bogdanovich family, which started Starkist. So they're very heavily involved in fishing. folks.
So,
yeah.
yeah. We did a lot back
We had
then,
fun,
you
and
know,
we
it
we
was
did a lot
fun.
of laughing. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
That was
one
the
of
best part.
craziest parts of the world you've ever fished?
Well, to be honest with you, I went to what I call the last frontier of the world of fishing, and that was on the Hannibal Banks of Panama. And I was invited down there by the Mr. Nabisco of Costa Rica. So we flew into San Jose, and then we went into Golfito, and we took his 100-foot mothership down into
Rough.
Golfito. I mean,
You're talking about the guy from Nabisco, the
no,
actual
no,
owner?
he's the
The Costa
Costa
Rican.
Rican Mr. Nabisco
Oh, gotcha.
guy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so we went down there and fished. Actually, the interesting thing too was that we flew, not fly, we drove down through a hurricane in this 100-foot ship. And, we were worried if the refrigerators were going to come off the mounts and all those kinds of things, And but when we got down there, I got really lucky, and the reason I call it the last frontier of fishing was so pristine down there that actually what I did was I was fly fishing at the time, and I actually landed a IGFA world record on Dorado down there. I got a 50-pound Dorado on a 20-pound class
Wow.
IGFA record
Wow.
down there. So the fishing was so good that, you talk about the days that, you can't catch anything, and the days that, you can't keep them off the hook. Well, this was the days that you couldn't keep them off the hook. And there was a lot of other species out there that we caught. The pargo there was so thick, and what we would do is, in fact, I fished with probably the most famous captain in Costa Rica, and he had a nice Spanish name. His name was Bobby McGinnis.
Real local.
That sounds like a relative of my wife's from Costa Rica. Bobby McGinnis.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's still around down there, but he fished out of Capos
Yeah.
on the West Coast. And he flew down, he drove his six-pack down and met us at the Hannibal Banks down there, and we transferred and fished a couple of days down there. And one was most impressive was we went pargo fishing, red pargo. And I remember the time that you would not see any pargo up against the rocks. And what he would do is he'd throw a teaser up against the rocks and reel it back in real quick, and the pargo would come up, and we called it like raising the Red Sea. The whole sea was red with pargo.
Oh my God.
And
Talk
so,
about trailblazing.
yeah, and then we'd throw a fly to it, and we'd hook, about 15, 20-pound pargo. Couldn't stop them most of the time,
Wow.
But that's some pretty wild, crazy trip.
Oh,
What
yeah.
year were you down there fishing Hannibal Bank? Don't tell me that was when I was living in Costa Rica.
Oh, probably was early 90s.
Oh, okay, yeah, little. I was down there in like 80.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did a lot of trips. I did quite a few trips into Costa Rica, and because of the travel business, Costa Rica at that time in the 80s and 90s was super popular. And one of the guys that made it super popular was Nick Curcioni. You
Oh,
remember you
yeah,
talked
oh,
about
Nick.
him?
You know,
my
Nicky.
college professor. I just talked to him the other day again.
You
Oh,
did,
man.
yeah.
Oh,
we're
my
in
God.
contact all the time.
We
now.
used to fish down there and together, and he used to fish at a place on the Caribbean called Casamar, and was a
I've
Yes.
heard of that.
top end lodge.
Yeah.
And Bill, I don't know if it was Bill Barnes, his name was.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he owned the lodge. He's
Yeah.
an American
Yeah.
down there, and so he fished with Bill a lot. But because of that, I had the opportunity to fish 2 oceans in one trip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That is so cool.
I flew to the Caribbean and we fished 80 to 100-pound tarpon. And then after we got done, flew over to the Pacific and a place called near Flamingo up there, up to the north.
Yeah.
And I fished with, believe it or not, the lodge was called Pesmaya. It was owned by, you wouldn't believe it, but Mark Tupper. And the last name, any familiar to you?
Tupperware.
Tupperware.
Yeah.
Mark Tupper.
Wow.
Yeah. So
We're
I
hanging around with some big shots.
Well,
Putting Nick aside.
putting Nick aside. Nick,
Just kidding, Nick. Just kidding.
if Nick was watching,
I'll send this to him.
he's pretty famous. You
I think
know.
he was Mr. Orvis, wasn't he? Wasn't he sponsored by Orvis?
Well, he hung around with a lot of different folks.
Yeah,
and he
that's
was,
Lefty Cray was a buddy.
Oh, yeah. We knew all,
yeah,
I knew
all the
those
big
guys.
boys, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
all the.
Stu Epp,
Hey, Nick
probably.
was, talk about an entertainer.
Oh,
If you're anywhere near that guy,
Yeah.
right?
He's the Italian stallion.
That's right, yeah.
He was good. He
Yeah.
was good, and I was down in Mexico with him, Costa Rica. I don't know where else we went, but Nick, he introduced me to the tarpon fishing, and then I went over to the Pacific, and then in the same trip, my first day sail fishing on the fly, I hooked 11 sailfish,
Jeez.
but it took 11 to land the 11th fish, and broke a sage right at the boat.
Oh, gee.
So, I had a fair amount of exciting trips there.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
So, but
You ever have anything that was like life-threatening or like we're not getting out of this one alive or anything that was so primitive that it was...
well, I did actually. I don't know if I should talk about it.
Of
but-
course you should.
It's
Danny's
like-
ratings will go through the roof.
It's a long time ago, and it was another, I call it almost all my trips were trip of a lifetime. Okay, really. And
I just came off the Independence and it was a trip of a lifetime for this week. Next week, I'll have another trip of a
there
lifetime.
you go, yeah. But this one here, I was invited by the Philippine government
Oh,
to go down and evaluate the fishing fleet in the Philippines for sport fishing charters.
oh my God. I was in the Philippines for a month, so I kind of know where this is going.
Pretty crazy, yeah?
Yeah.
So anyway, make a long story short, they flew us down to the Sulu Sea, Port of Princesa, very small village.
I love that place. Yeah,
Oh, have you been to?
Yeah, I have.
Very small town.
Palawan, right?
Palawan, yes, the island, yes. And so we were with the Manila Big Game Fishing Club. And so actually the one guy was, I forgot his name now, Nick, or Vic they called him. He was probably considered the richest Filipino in
Holy
Manila.
smokes.
Wow.
Yeah, he owned several restaurants there, and he belonged to the Manila Big Game Fishing Club. So we started out in these what they call bancas, and bancas are basically a canoe hull with an outrigger on both sides, and we didn't know that till we got there. Okay, so they had about 10 or 12 of these, and so there was some Americans with me down there that I brought with me, and it was the tourism department took care of everything for us. The Manila Big Game Fishing Club took care of all the boats and everything, And you know, a famous guy was with me, and you probably know the name. There's a knot named after him. Tony Pena.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Tony Pena was with me down in the Philippines. He came
Wow.
with me. Yeah. And so he was a popper guy. He's always a popper guy, fishing poppers on surface. And so he got to fish his poppers. The night we left, they said, we're going to take off tonight and we're going to get up in the morning in the Sulu Sea and we're going to start our fishing club tournament. So it's a long story. I don't want to tell you about the boat, but the boat was not a luxury cruiser. Okay? And,
Go ahead, tell us about it, Jeff.
Well, it's more like a canoe. Okay, and so
That's okay. Man, that's unique.
it's a
you
real,
know?
it's a real story if you want to have time. But
Go ahead. Yes,
okay.
absolutely. Because, Chet, sometimes when I travel somewhere and things are like really bad like that, those are some of my best memories. So, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Go into some
Absolutely.
detail, right, Danny?
Absolutely.
So I don't know if people know them or they're still fishing around, but I had clients with me at the time, and the two clients were Wallace, Bogan, and Brown. Like Wallace, yeah. Anyway, they were Bogan and Brown. Well, if I understand correctly, they owned a small airport in Carlsbad. So they came along with me. They were always into the adventure trips. Anyway, I don't know if there's another person you might know, Ed Au. He was actually one of the guys that started Angler magazine in California.
Sounds really familiar.
Yeah, Ed
That
Au.
goes back.
I can't place him, but
Yeah.
So anyway, we got out on these bancas and we come to find out we're heading out in the dark and we've got two Filipinos that don't speak English, okay? And so in the briefing, they said, well, here's the plan. For you guys to eat, there's a sheet of paper that on one side, it's in the English, what you want to eat. So you point to that and they'll look at the number. They'll flip over the sheet and it's in Tagalog, okay? And they'll cook it for you. And so we're out to sea, and when we get up in the morning, there's no GPS or anything, barely a compass on these bancas. And so we get out there, and I don't even see any boats around. There's probably a dozen of us, but they're scattered all over the Sulu Sea. And so we get out there, and they had to reorganize, and by the time they reorganized, they basically had to call the tournament off for a day to get back to the reef. And so anyway, started the tournament, and again, one of my lucky days again, I caught the only sailfish of the whole tournament, the only big fish of the tournament. So I got about 100-pound sailfish, and the only one in the Manila Big Game Fishing Club tournament. And so it's pretty rough out there. And so, I mean, not the weather or the seas, but living conditions, because on the way out at night, the banca is so skinny that they know there's no windows in it. They had wooden shutters that you closed it up like a box, and so there's no ventilation in it, right? And so you had to sleep on these mattresses that are vinyl, right? So you're sweating like a dog.
God, yeah.
Okay, and then we find out to go to the bathroom, they had a toilet in the bow, but it didn't go anywhere. It didn't drain anywhere.
Yeah, pretty
So-
cool. It's like having a bucket. Oh.
Basically, it was a toilet, but it should have been just a bucket.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, because you
geez.
throw the bucket over.
Boy, let's tell you.
So then it's time to eat. So, we did the drill and pointed to that, what we wanted. They flipped it over, but their interpretation of what we wanted to eat wasn't the same thing. They didn't know, they looked in the ice chest and they didn't know what it was. Like bacon or eggs or whatever, they didn't know what it was. So then I became the cook.
Oh.
See, we have 4 guys on board. So to prevent the disaster, I became the cook too.
Oh man.
So here's how you had to cook. On the bow, there's a charcoal stove. Now we're talking about a wooden banca.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Asking for trouble.
So we had to light up the wooden charcoal hibachi,
Oh
basically.
my God.
And I had to cook the meals for everybody for 2 days on the hibachi, basically.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then,
Unbelievable.
we had 2 jerry cans of water, real jerry cans. And that was to shower, to drink, and whatever, you know.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that was my real adventure trip that really turned into disaster. You know, the owner of the what we call the big banca, that he was the rich guy that had like almost like the Royal Polaris type boat.
Yeah.
Big. He had a cook on, and he had his family on. He had a babysitter for his kids were on board. He had everything. And Tony Pina was lucky. Tony was riding the big boat, so he was happier. And you know, the last day of the trip, the supply boats would come around to us to reload us. And so I saw him coming around, and I told my clients, Bogan and Brown and Ed Au, I said, pack all your bags, because when that supply boat gets here, we're jumping on the supply boat, and we're going to go on the big banca to go home, because it was like, I don't know how many miles to the to Bataha Reef from Palawan. It's not close anyway,
Right.
probably 20, 30 miles, you know.
Holy smokes. You talk about trailblazing and a pioneer. Chad, you were way ahead of your time, I'll just tell
So,
you.
well, yeah, and then, you know, I had to write a report to the tourism department about whether they had a viable program. But, you know,
Oh
how
my
that
God.
went, you know.
Well, these are awesome stories.
Oh,
I
God,
mean,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's, you know, I was lucky to have, you know, I traveled all over Alaska, and I fished with the first Eskimo fishing lodge, sport fishing lodge in Alaska. It was out of a place called White Mountain, and it was run by the natives, Eskimos. And so I had the opportunity with several other writers to go there and fish with the Eskimos. And so actually at that time too, I was also doubling as a outdoor writer for California Angler magazine too.
I can remember your articles. Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I was there on assignment plus as a travel agent. And so there's only 2 of us that got to do a seal hunt with the Eskimos. And so a guy named Silvio Calavi, who was the editor of Fly Rod and Reel magazine.
Yeah.
Silvio Calavi, and I were the only 2 picked to seal hunt with a young Eskimo and his girlfriend. And we got a seal, and hate to tell you how they do it back then even. They carry a gun. They carry a .22 gun and a harpoon. And so actually they're really good shots, and they're really good with a harpoon. And so from quite a distance, they shot a seal with a .22, and then they got up close to it and they harpooned it. But nothing goes to waste, you know, they're subsistence folks. And so got home, and the grandmother was waiting with that knife they call the ulu knife.
Yes.
Okay.
Just that rounded
Right.
handle in the middle, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I have one
And
of those.
she took care of it, and you know, nothing wasted. And at the lodge, it was a 5-star lodge. Had a hot tub in it.
You ate seal meat?
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
And-
right. How was it?
And it was terrible. If the Eskimos are watching, they'll hate me for it. But it was like chewing leather, and it was they call it muck duck. Muck duck is their specialty, and so no, I didn't like it at all, and I don't think anybody else really liked it. You know, and
Yeah.
so that was my Alaska adventure. So I've had quite a few in the world, but
Oh
That-
my,
that was
what a
pretty
blazer
interesting
too, though, Chet. Especially back in those days, you're really blazing. I mean, now, you look at it, we're spoiled now.
yeah, we are. But that's the travel business. It was back then. That was back before faxes even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You didn't happen to know a guy named Bruce Kuhn who had a company called Baja Adventures? You know him,
I know
or-
him. He was my competitor in the business.
Really?
Bruce Kuhn did mainly Baja.
Yes.
He did thousands of people to Baja.
Yes.
Okay. Was that your friend? Or
Yeah. No, don't worry though. Just say whatever you gotta say.
Bruce Kuhn, probably still alive. We're still the same age, but Bruce Kuhn actually took all the hoteliers in Baja for a long ride, stole all their money, and he went out of business.
Oh jeez.
That's true. I mean, I know he went out of business.
He went out of business because he didn't pay the hotels. And I always wondered at the time when I was in business, how come he could put these Baja trips together so cheap? Because I couldn't compete with him. And there was a lot of folks in the business, Baja Fishing Adventures in Long Beach, Gordon Prentice, I think it was.
Remember that name?
Okay, and he was big in Baja, and he was hard to beat, but Bruce Kuhn beat everybody. But that's because he kept the money.
Well, I'm glad we went with you because we never had anything repossessed. We always had a great time. Yeah.
There was 3 or
Yep.
4 people that were not great actors in the
Yeah.
business of travel.
Yeah.
See, there was another guy, I forget his name, but I remember his company name was called Tracks to Costa Rica. Okay, and he took everybody for a ride. He stole a lot of money, never paid the operators, and I had travel agents calling me saying, "What can I do? Can you do anything for me? Because he's gone, and he took our money."
Oh my God.
So there was a lot of bad operators. I hate to speak names, but
No, but that's
those are
part
the real
of it. Yeah,
names
that's
of the guys. And so those are 2 of the real bad actors that I knew of. And if you talk to any of the major hotels in Cabo or in the whole area there, they would know him. They would know him.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And
Well,
so-
thank God we had Chet back in those days. I mean, we always had great
Oh, I-
trips.
I
Yeah.
stood behind my name.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
all about your name, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
No
so,
matter what you do, it's
Yeah.
your name.
Yeah.
yeah.
Chuck, any crazy experiences in Mexico or your favorite place to fish in Mexico? I love going to Mexico.
Well, I got a lot of stories about Mexico, okay, but I'll tell you maybe 2 of them real quick.
Yeah.
One of them is, I was an adventurer, okay, so one day I loaded up my wife and my 2 kids, and I drove from Torrance to Cabo San Lucas in about 2 weeks.
Wow.
And so that was an adventure.
I love that drive.
Cheapest hotel I ever stayed at was in between Ensenada and probably Bay of LA, $2 a night.
Boy, that's worth it. Just
$2 a
for the
night,
bragging rights.
For the adventure.
Just for the bragging.
you know.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And
How
so
was it? Was it okay?
it
I
was-
mean,
yeah, it
it's
was.
not
It
going to be a
was.
5-star, but
It was.
had a bed, right?
It had a bed.
Yeah.
It was okay. It was okay.
Yeah.
My wife and kids weren't too happy with it. You know. But yeah, that was one trip. The other trip I thought was very rewarding to me in that we're talking about the Islanders Rod and Gun Club
Yeah.
now. After some really long research, I caravan about 30 of the members and wives and kids of the Islanders Rod and Gun Club down to, I forget the name of the town now, just below Ensenada.
San Quintin?
San Quintin. I'm trying to think of the name. Back then, where almost all the roads were dirt. Back there, right? And the only big hotel there was the La Pinta Hotel.
Oh, I remember La Pinta.
It's probably still there.
Yeah.
Okay, but prior to that, in my research, what I did was I drove around and fished with a guy that had a panga out of the landing. It was in Mission Viejo, I think it was, and it was basically down an old dirt road. There was only one or two pangas there, and he took us fishing. And the only thing he had, okay, fish San Martin, right? And it's foggy down there, right? You've probably
geez.
been down there,
Oh,
and know,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now I went out there in a panga from San Martin.
Oh, my
I mean,
God.
from San Quintin.
Yeah.
And we only had a compass. He had a whiskey compass, what we used to call a whiskey compass, on the bow. No GPS, no nothing. And through the fog, through the bay, out to San Martin. And but I lived, and so I caravanned the whole club, about probably 5 or 6 vehicles, all the way down from Torrance all the way down to San Quintin, and most people who have never been to Mexico or Baja, they're very hesitant about going. They're very scared to go, and so after that trip, they went every year.
Yeah, see,
Every year.
you blazed it, Chet. You
So
blazed
they
it.
love
yeah.
San Quintin. And the unique thing about San Quintin too was when we were down there at the landing there, well, if we come in from fishing, I look in the water next to the landing and I see a whole bunch of crabs, you know? And so I go, wow. So the next trip we come down, I said, we're going to bring the crab nets. And sure enough, we had buckets of crab, white crab, and then we had fish. And then in front of the San Quintin, the beach, is pismo clams.
Oh my God, you eat like kings.
So we
Oh.
had all kinds of stuff to
Good
eat
stuff.
and fish and enjoy for 2 or 3 days down in San Quintin. So that was rewarding because, you know, people that were afraid to go to another country and, you know, people and whatnot, you know, I made a believer out of him that it's okay to do things like that, you know. Same thing with Taka. He was kind of afraid to go. And so, you know,
I think I remember that trip. I mean,
You remember
was that was when we found that, you know, we were driving to the hotel and we saw a taco stand where all the locals were, you know, and we said, we want to go back there. This is kind of a funny story. So we go to the taco stand. I think there might have been 15. We had a big crowd. We had
it
quite a
was
few.
because I made it into a tournament, fishing tournament.
Yes, yes, yeah. So we had a big crowd. We get there, and we all sit down, and they're all the little small burritos, small tacos, right? So all of us go, oh my God, they're kind of small. So, you know, I better order 4, you know, 2 burritos, 2 tacos, and then we'll start with that and sodas, whatever. So we're all done, and we want to pay the bill. So we go, well, how many did you have? Well, I had 4 burritos and 2 tacos. I had this, and like I said, they're small. And so we're all raising our hands and saying, no, I had 2 and 4. Well, while we're doing this, the gal's doubling our order. So now, instead of 4, we've eaten 8 burritos and 4 tacos or whatever, you know, with the soda. And we go, oh my God, all this food started coming out. Well, we ended up killing it.
Yeah.
You know, so we're looking for, I go, nobody raised their hands. How many did you have? Okay, you had 8, you had this, you had this. And she gives us the bill, and it was so cheap. We go, no, can't be it. And she kept insisting, yeah, that's it. I said, no, it can't be that. And we gave her more than double the amount. I said, let's throw that in, you know. And I mean, that alone, Chet, was worth talking about and very memorable. I mean, like I said, to me, it's like yesterday.
Oh.
And we went back the next day. But of course you go back where all the local sheriffs and police, they all eat, and all the locals. I don't want to go to a hotel with all the Americans. You want to eat what the locals eat. But,
Right.
you know, through your adventures, oh my God, we had phenomenal. Those trips are always just fun.
Appreciate that.
That's great,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I thought it was all
absolutely,
about. Like to be.
absolutely.
But yeah,
Yeah, well, one of the true blazers down there.
That was the thing with my kids and I. Parents would be, no, I don't want my son or daughter going with you to Mexico. They're gonna get their head cut off. And then we finally talk them into it, and the kid would be sitting in a restaurant going, this is exactly the opposite of what I was told it was gonna be like. It's peaceful, people are nice.
Beautiful. Yes.
It's a beautiful place. And I know what you're talking about. When you turn somebody like that, you feel a sense of accomplishment, or I don't know what,
That's
you know?
part of it, I think.
Yeah,
too,
right?
You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
One
they're-
other one I had sense of accomplishment, felt really good about it was I took a group of Texas Rangers into the Amazons. Okay. And I went into Manaus. I took them into Manaus. And they went from Texas. I was living in Reno at the time. And I escorted them from Miami into Manaus. And then aircraft picked us up and flew us into the jungle. And then we boarded a houseboat. And I hate to say, but one of the Texans, one of them, he wasn't part of the Texas Rangers, but he was another individual from Texas. But I hate to say he was more prejudiced against Japanese because he was a POW in World War II.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But after I actually fished with him and came out of the trip with him,
You changed them.
it changed him to, he wasn't, what is it, the word, against
Yeah, bias.
Orientals or
Yeah,
Japanese,
Yeah.
biased
Yeah.
about it. And
Yeah.
he turned around completely, and
Beautiful.
that's
Beautiful.
that's probably the most rewarding one I had.
It has to be.
And
Yeah.
his son called me several months after the trip, and from Texas, and he said, my dad had such a good time with you, and for his birthday, you took a picture of him with his like 10 or 12 pound peacock bass, and he says, can I have it? So I blew up a big picture, I don't know, 8 by 10 or 11 by 40 or something, of him with his big peacock bass, and I sent it to them, and they were just ecstatic about that. So it's not only about the fishing, right?
Right.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
it's,
yeah.
Every time I go to Alaska, I tell people, just don't look into the water at the fish. Look up and see the white-capped, snow-capped mountains. Look at the land. Look at everything, not just the fishing part of it.
Oh my God.
So that's, to me, the whole experience is not just the fishing part.
Yeah. No, it's the experience with especially in Brazil, and when you're in the Amazon and through that, the primitive stuff. I used to feel bad, and I would always bring my kids had clothes that still had tags on it, so I bring down a lot of stuff for the kids in the villages when you land in the small fields to give away. But Steve would tell me, he says, and something that we don't recognize as Americans is you got to be careful, because if we gave these people a common cold, you might kill off a whole village. And you don't recognize that, right? Because they don't have the immunity systems. And we didn't do that, but when he told me that after, I'm going, oh my God, you got to be kidding. So we had to kind of quit doing that extra stuff and I just got this phobia now that you can do that, and you think about that, right?
Yeah.
They don't have the immunity system, so it's something to it was brought upon me that here you want to do good, but you don't want to wipe out a village with a common cold, by us bringing down a common cold. So in travel, there's so many life lessons that we've learned over the years. It's wonderful. I wouldn't trade it for anything, But yeah, like you said, there's a lot to be learned.
What I call it a geographic moment was I was in the Amazons, and we were fishing, and of course you're not really in the Amazons, right? You're in what they call the Rio Negro system, the Blackwater system.
Blackwater, before it hits the
Black River,
Bronco.
But we came upon a family in the middle of nowhere, and it was a mother and a daughter, and one was washing clothes, and there was a million butterflies around, you know, and so that was unbelievable. But what they were doing was they would collect tropical fish to bring back to the U.S. in the Amazons. And so that was their life, to collect tropical fish. So, you know, National Geographic moments.
Oh yeah.
There.
And you're right. We travel from the Blackwater, and you go into a little stream, into those clear water streams, like neon tetras. We look and we go, God, they're beautiful. Hey, those are all aquarium stuff. You know, it's truly an amazing. Those trips are absolutely amazing. You know.
That's that's where we get all those fishes in the aquariums in the pet store.
Absolutely.
A lot of it, I guess.
And I mean, some of the big ones we would catch and use them for bait too. Then we get the bigger ones. We go, hey, that looks like I want to throw that on a peacock. You know. But yeah, we leave it to us Californians. You know. But
Yeah.
no.
You know, being a bass
Unbelievable.
fisherman too, the peacocks are like the king,
Oh,
right? You
oh
know,
my God,
so-
the blow-ups,
Yeah.
nothing like it.
Best
Steve,
place to fish
Yeah.
peacock bass? Where is
oh, that's there.
Where Danny
I
went,
said,
I think where
there.
I went.
I got
that was
hooked
probably-
5 years in a row. I went down there with Steve. He told me, but you know, I mean, here you're a blazer. You know, you're one of the early blazers for sure. I'm not even close. You know.
It seems like that's where the biggest ones are, is
Yeah.
in the Amazons, in the lower Amazons actually,
Yeah.
because the Amazons actually, they say, start in Peru. And in Peru, the peacocks are much smaller for some reason. But as you get way down in the system, into Brazil,
Yeah.
the peacocks are huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. No, it's a blast. It's an absolute.
yeah. I guess they got a lot of operators now in the Amazons. They're still doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. Steve, you told me, just got down there today.
Oh, back again?
He was in Indonesia 2 days ago. Had a quick stop at Auntie Miley's, get his Hawaiian food,
Oh.
and then hopped on a plane. He's down in Manaus this morning. I think it was. So yeah.
Oh, you spoke
Yeah, he's
about
under-
Auntie Miley's, right?
Yes.
Okay, my my best friend, who is Islanders Fishing Club, right? His son owns it, or did own it, and sold it to Auntie Miley.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he owned it.
Miley
He
and
started
Uncle
it.
Bruce had to deal.
and
Yeah.
and
Oh
then
my
sold
God.
it.
What's Auntie Miley's?
Oh, I'm gonna have to take you over there. You're a
Yeah.
carnivore. You'll
Yeah.
love it.
Oh.
Oh, it's the best Hawaiian food in Southern Cal.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
And they got
I don't know if you eat lau, but I think on a Friday if you eat lau, it's a special. You know.
It's kind of like
yeah.
going to Gardena Bowl.
Oh, okay.
Or even more, more, yeah,
I'm in.
down home.
Let's go
Yeah, you
sometime.
got it. Yeah, we'll have to do that for
Another
sure.
podcast.
Yeah, we'll film it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Hawaiian food is real different if you're not familiar with
Yeah,
it.
poke. You know, I mean, everything's the real deal. You know.
So yeah, there's a lot of restaurants now that serve Hawaiian food in LA. Yeah, in fact, one of my other friends in the fishing club, the Islander Club, his son owns a couple of Hawaiian food restaurants here in LA, Torrance, and I forget where else it was, but Ash Kawasaki.
Oh my God.
Kawasaki's, they have a couple of restaurants.
You know what's funny, Chet? I don't think I ever told you this, but my dad's good friend in the Air Force, he was from Hawaii. And his name was John Young, so we called him Uncle John, right? And anyway, you know, when I was, the first time they came to the mainland, this is after, you know, they both served over in Korea. And before they were stationed, before they were sent to Korea, they were down south, you know, so on the winter break, our family was in Chicago, and my dad took Uncle John up with the family up to Chicago, so he wouldn't be by himself, you know. So basically, you know, we became real close. So at, I think it was 5, he gave me my first conventional, they had a trip back to LA, brought me my first conventional reel, which of course I didn't know how to use. I was using the Mitchell 300 back in those days.
Mr. Garcia.
And
yeah.
as I got older, you know, we had a lot of correspondence. But I was a Boy Scout when I was 16. We made a trip over to Waikiki, to Honolulu. He lived in Aiea, you know. And so I can remember taking off away from the troop to go spend a day to go fish with Uncle John. Now, up until that time, he had hooked like 15 marlin and lost them. You know, he's using a big 16-0 pan, the whole deal. he had a trailerable boat that we went up to Makaha and dumped it in up there. And we're trolling, I'm asleep halfway, and we hook a marlin. We landed his first marlin. And I got to tell you, there's nothing like anything in Hawaii where all the neighbors, we put out these big tables in the middle of the street. They put the marlin out there, you're chopping it up. All the neighbors are getting a chunk of marlin, but all the neighbors are bringing pupus and stuff.
Yeah.
And we have a big party out in the street. I mean, it was something I'll never forget in my life, you know. But I mean, it's so cool. I mean, that was my.
That's the thing about people in Hawaii. They have to have or find an excuse to have a party.
Yeah.
Right?
Catch
There's
your
always
first
going to be an
marlin?
excuse to have a party.
That's
Unbelievable.
pretty worldwide, isn't it?
Is it?
I think so. All my Mexican friends in Mexico are always looking for an excuse.
There you go.
Everybody around here is always looking for an excuse.
Yeah.
You know, I got to say something. You look at, I think that travel, the kind of travel you guys are talking about, is the best education a kid
it
could
is.
ever get.
Absolutely.
Way better than anything I experienced in the university. I went to Loyola, good university, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
I learned a lot more living in Costa Rica, living in Mexico, 3 years in China, traveling around the world. You learn so much, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, I have a marlin story, real quick one to tell you.
Don't make it
Actually,
quick.
I have two, but
Good. We want to hear them both.
Yeah,
Right, Andy?
absolutely.
the first one is before I had my travel business. I had a guy contact me from New Zealand. Okay, so his name was Rick Pollock, and I don't know if you ever heard the name before.
Rick Pollock, yes.
Okay, he was a San Diego skipper,
Skipper.
and became expatriate of New Zealand. So he ran a boat in, they call it Whakatane in New Zealand. We call it Wakatani.
Yeah,
But he invited me, he gave a presentation to our club. And so he invited me down to fish with him in Whakatane. And so I went down there with one of our club members. And again, one of those trips that you couldn't do anything wrong. Okay. So we're heading out to this place called White Island. And you heard White Island on the news where the volcano blew up and killed a whole bunch of tourists there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
A few years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's the island we went to. We headed for that island. And it was only smoking back then. But on the way, halfway out to the island, and we didn't have our gear put together, right? So we had about 3, they call them English mackerels, the big ones, big mackerels live in the tanks. And so he says, you guys put your gear together because there's a bunch of birds in front of us. And so I had my gear together first. So we pinned on looked like about 3-4 pound mackerel on my Yo's long range rod, 5-footers, the ones that nobody likes anymore.
655 heavy or something like that?
XH or something.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And so, so he said, get on the bow.
Yeah.
I got on the bow, and he said, we looked up, and there's a meatball of mackerel. I mean, a huge meatball. Well, we look closer, there's 3 striped marlin circling the meatball. So about time we got close enough, and I pitched the mackerel in the middle. Well, the marlin came in for the kill, and the mackerel all split, and my bait was there, and one of them ate it. Okay, and that's great fishing. But the interesting thing is, it took me about an hour. It's probably, I call them smart fish. They're one of the smartest fish that I fished for, because on the bow, we finally got the marlin in close, but we couldn't get him up. And what he did was he faced the boat, and so every time Rick would back the boat and turn it, try to get away from the marlin so we could fight it, he would stay between my legs and follow the boat. So we couldn't get him tired, and so finally we got him up. He died, actually. It took so long. And so we got the fish up, and actually on the same trip, we went out to another reef, and I got my first big yellowtail.
And they're big.
They're big. It went 50.
Those are big, yeah.
50-pound yellowtail. I guess, of course, they call them southern yellowtail, but
Right.
but they look the same. But yeah, so I got all kinds of really good fishing. And but the interesting thing about the marlin is when we were coming in back into the port, it's a small kind of village-like place, and he called in and said he told the town that we're coming in with a big marlin. And the marlin was big because the average it was a striped marlin. The average striped marlin is about 100 to 110 pounds. You catch them in Cabo all day long,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, this was twice the size. This one was 220.
Well, that's big. It's a big striper.
220, yeah. And so we come in, the whole town was there meeting us. The whole town, kids, everybody. And so Rick told me, he said, you know what? There's a wedding in town, and the wedding party asked me if they could have the fish for their wedding. So I said, sure, what am I going to do with a 220-pound marlin anyway? And we had to kill this one. So, but I donated 220-pound marlin to a wedding party in Whakatane, New Zealand. So that was another rewarding.
Beautiful.
Oh my God,
Sure.
unbelievable! Yeah, so that was, and it didn't like Jack Montgomery. So a few of the San Diego skippers. Jack went over there. I don't know whether he got kicked out because Jack is Jack, but I mean, Jack was a rebel. Great fisherman though. I got to say, great fisherman. When he went to New Zealand there, he went with my partner, with Bashi. And and he blazed, but I think he basically got kicked out of there and ended up in Alaska after that, But we stayed with Jack. Jack actually ran the fortune. We took the fortune up to Alaska. We were gonna commercial fish with it and everything else. But Jack's a great fisherman. But yeah,
I
I think
didn't
he
see
got
him
booted
there.
out of. That's Jack, but I think he got booted out of New Zealand.
Well, Rick was really famous in New Zealand, still is.
No,
he's
great.
still there.
He's still there.
And
I remember when he was here.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what social media does?
Oh,
I looked him up finally on social media. So I haven't seen him in over 40 years, right? The last time I fished with him in New Zealand. Well, I found out that his son lives in Honolulu.
oh, you're kidding.
Yeah. and
Wow.
I remember his son because it was an unusual name. He named him Kid. So his name is Kid Pollock. And so, I finally got through his son, got to Rick, and he came to Honolulu coincidentally about that time, and which was only a year ago. And so I took him out to lunch for one of our famous Hawaiian plate lunches. He couldn't believe it. He
Which
says,
one?
well, there's a place called St. Louis Drive-In in Hawaii.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I love that place. And
Yeah.
the thing that I eat there is called the seafood platter. Okay, deluxe seafood platter. And for $12, you would get a fillet piece of mahi-mahi, 2 shrimp tempuras, and 6 pieces of sashimi for $12. And that's just a everyday
Nothing
plate
like,
lunch. That they
nothing
serve.
like plate lunches.
So I got him that,
Yeah.
and he couldn't believe it, and he ate it all up, and his son goes there now, and
Oh, that's so cool.
when I grew up there,
yeah.
I ate there since it opened in 1962. So I ate there since 1965. So every time I eat there a fair amount. But anyway, yeah. So Rick was a real famous guy. And,
Oh, that's awesome. That's so awesome.
enjoyed-
Yeah, my grandparents on my mom's side were both born in Hilo, because when they came over in 1892, they were born in Hilo. So they're the early 1900s. But they're the ones I fished with every weekend from the time I was, 4 years old. So yeah. So it always had that Hawaiian everything. We had we were musubis, we had this, we had that, you name it.
Chet, you said you had another Marlin story,
you still want to hear another?
Absolutely.
Yes.
This is like talking to
Heck
Zane
yeah!
Grey or something,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
This is a Zane
He's
Grey
a blazer.
story.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm
It's almost like a Zane Grey story.
clairvoyant tonight.
Okay, so this was, maybe even before I was involved with the fishing club. I had some friends in Kona, okay, and so I decided to go fishing in Kona, okay, and so the boat that they had, it was called the Hawaiian in Kona. Now, interesting thing about that boat is because most of the boats are owned and operated by what we call haole people. Haole is just a term for Caucasian or white folks.
Right.
And so in Kona, almost all the boats are operated by haole.
Yeah.
There's the only Hawaiian boat. Hawaiian owned and operated family operation by a captain named Arthur Spinney. Okay. And he's famous in himself as a Hawaiian captain. Okay. But I didn't fish with him. And I fished with his sons. His sons were all captains. He had 3 sons, all captains. Okay, so we went out on a charter with him, and actually there was somebody from San Diego that chartered the boat, actually. And so we fished all day with nothing, and about 3 o'clock, we hooked some, what we call aku, which is skipjack, right? So aku, it was about a 5-pound aku, so we bridle hooked the aku live. And so it was about 3 o'clock or 3:30, I remember, in the afternoon. We hooked up. Okay, so we hooked the fish, and it was huge. Okay, huge. And so we fought him, and took everybody in the boat had their chance. To make a long story short, it was in dark by the time we got the fish in. Okay, from 3 o'clock to about 3 o'clock in the morning we got in. We fought the fish for 11 hours.
Holy smoke.
11 hours with about 4 or 5 guys. And the reason was, and this is what the captains told me, was that there's a pressure barrier in the water, and you probably already know that they told me that at 30 feet there's a pressure barrier, that anything below 30 feet will hold you or fish down, especially if it's dead. So what happened was this marlin died, and it was below 30 feet. So we had to plane this
Plane
fish
it.
out
Forward, back.
for about 8 or 10 hours.
Oh my God. Holy
We
smokes.
planed the fish. It was dark. We had to call home. My wife's waiting in the hotel with my kids, and wondering we lost at sea or whatever. And finally, the family called my wife and said, "We're okay. We're fighting a fish." And so we get it onto the dock, onto the scale. Okay, it was a 870 black marlin. So it was huge, yeah. And the guy that actually did the charter, I heard he owned some kind of small zoo in San Diego or something. He had it mounted,
Holy smokes.
870 pound
So there's
marlin.
one mounted somewhere down there, probably in San Diego. huh?
Probably,
Yeah.
you know.
Unreal.
So it's another fish
Unreal.
story.
That-
That's a
that's
great one,
unbelievable.
right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's all true stories.
Yeah. See, in our family, my great grandparents, when they left Japan in 1892, they stopped them. So my grandparents that I fished with every weekend, both of them were born in Hilo, and my great grandfather had the fishing fleet there in Hilo, you know, and he was a Shimamoto, and so he used to work with a guy named P.C. Beamer, who owned a lot of this stuff. And I don't know if that's part of the Beamer family, you know, the singers and stuff, but you know,
Yeah.
it was really funny. And they got hit by, it was a big hurricane in the early 1900s, and that's when they came to the mainland. That's what made them come over to the mainland. But yeah, amazing all
Yeah,
the stories and history it goes back.
Do you still travel around the world?
I still do travel because, you know, my main life actually, I was an airline employee. I was an aircraft maintenance technician. And so a lot of what I did was, you know, flying with the airlines. So I flew around a lot even though I had the travel business too. Before the travel business, and so even after my travel business, I went back with the airlines and I fly. And so actually my next trip is going to Aitutaki in the Cook Islands.
Oh, I've been to the Cook Islands. I love
Have
the
you?
Cook Islands. Yeah.
Yeah. So soon, probably in January, I'm going to go down to the Cook. And on my bucket list is also Cuba.
I haven't done that, and that's on my bucket list.
And
Let's
that's
go, Danny.
I've been.
it's good, but you got to know how to travel in Cuba. I've been to Cuba 2 times now, not for fishing. I went once for scuba diving, because part of my tour business was also scuba diving trips too. So, and I'm a certified open water diver. So, I went for diving one time in Cuba, and then actually recently I went to Havana because I was scouting for a trip into Cuba for tarpon, permit, and bonefish.
Grand
So,
Slam.
The Grand Slam is what I'm looking for before
There
I
you go.
go. And it's one of my last bucket
There you go.
lists,
There you go.
And so, so I, you have to know how to move around Cuba, okay? Because number one, we don't have a relationship government to government with Cuba, so they don't accept American dollars, okay? They don't accept American credit cards, so you carry euros or Canadian dollars with you. That's the way you have to travel. Now, it's being more and more accepted, I heard, though, that they will accept a US dollar, but you don't get as much for your money with a US dollar. But if you really get stuck and you had to use your credit card, you can't use your credit card because they just won't accept cards because the banks don't recognize an American credit card. You have to have a European or a Canadian credit card down there. Yeah. So you have to know how to travel down there. There's a lot of travel agencies now, not a lot, but there's some travel agencies that specialize in going into Cuba to fish. And so they have things figured out, and I kind of know what they're doing. But the interesting thing is the area that I want to fish is way far away from Havana, which is the better fishing. And another thing you have to remember too, when you travel in Cuba, you cannot stay in any hotel. 90% of the hotels in Cuba are government owned. And the State Department has a list of hotels that are owned by the Cuban government, and you're not allowed to stay there.
As an American citizen?
As an American citizen.
So, are you allowed to go to Cuba?
You are allowed to go to Cuba, but it has to be one of 10 reasons. They have a list. And when you go into Cuba, you have to fill out the list. What is your reason, your legitimate reason to go into Cuba? And there's only one that 95% of Americans will qualify for. And I'll tell you, somebody from the State Department might be watching me, but it's legal. You go, it's called going in support of the Cuban people. Okay. So an example is you cannot stay in those fancy resorts because they're all owned by the government. Okay. Airbnbs are good because they're not owned by the US government. They're private local businesses. So you qualify as not breaking the law, not staying in a government hotel. So you can use Airbnbs or find the hotels that you can go and stay at. Yeah. So you're supporting the government, or I'm sorry, you're supporting the statement that you're supporting the local people by fishing with the local guides, okay, and staying in local hotels and Airbnbs. You can even rent a room there. I've been in Havana and just rent the rooms. Very cheap, $40 a night, to stay with them. Very good hosts, and they have lots of great tours right in Havana. And so And a lot of in the tourist industry, a lot of people speak English and whatnot. But yeah, you got to pick the right hotel. You have to have the right money. You have to fish with the right people. And transportation is another interesting thing there.
The old cars. They still have those.
Cars, yeah. I got another story about that, but I won't go into that one.
Why not?
I'll tell you about moving around in Cuba. See, in my research, trying to find out how to travel, I did some internet research, and I didn't get anywhere, and that's why I went into Havana to find out how I'm going to move around and whatnot. So I couldn't get any answers on the airlines that was going into this one area, and so I knew that there was an airline that went in there, but it didn't go in from Havana. So I found out when I flew into Havana that I went directly to Cubana Airlines, their office, and talked to them. And so they told me that we don't fly into this town that you want to go into. And so I said, well, how do I get in there? They said, well, you take the bus. Now, it's at least an 8 to 10 hour bus ride from Havana into this remote location. Okay. If you want to fly into that area, you have to fly either from Europe or Toronto, Canada.
Jeez.
So, you know, if you wanted to alleviate the bus ride, what you have to do is you have to fly from, let's say here, LAX to Toronto, get on a plane from Toronto into this area here.
And then back down. Holy smokes.
Yeah, and otherwise you take the 8-hour bus ride. So, you know, you got to find out all the logistics about moving into Cuba,
Well,
and fishing
that's
into
why they
Cuba.
travel with people. That's why we've always traveled with people like you, because he's got it down.
Well, you
And
know,
that's huge. Those little things are huge, though. You know.
I like to help people. And,
Oh yeah.
you know, I try and find the best facts and the best ways to travel somewhere, you know. And believe it or not, interesting thing is American Airlines, even though we don't have a relationship with Cuba, has 6 flights a day from Miami to Havana.
Really?
Round trip, 6 flights a day. And they're never full. Never full. And
That's got to be. Is it cheap?
I don't
It's
know.
only 90 miles, right? Or
Oh, no, you know what? It's a Catalina ride. I call it the 26 miles across the sea.
Wow,
26 miles.
crazy.
Yeah, it's very close. 20-minute ride, if that.
Yeah.
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 So you can fly from here to Miami and get on a 20-minute ride, and you'll be in Havana, Cuba.
Wow.
Yeah, but you can't get into the location that I'm talking about. I can't remember the name of it now. But the only way you can get in there is from either Europe or Canadians. So you see a ton of Canadians down there and a ton of Europeans.
Wow.
What's wrong with a 10-hour bus? I did Mexico City to Tijuana 2 times. That was a 72-hour bus ride. I'm good with an 8-hour bus ride, 10-hour.
Well, yeah, if
I
you,
can imagine what the bus looks like. I already can see. I know what's going on.
you don't mind riding with the roosters.
Right, exactly. You're gonna get hit in the head. You know, watermelon's gonna roll off and hit you in the head or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
So yeah.
That's great.
So if anybody needed to know how to go into Cuba, I can tell you how to get into Cuba.
That's awesome.
You are the man, Jed.
One
I'm
funny
telling
thing
you.
about Cuba is they used to have 2 types of monetary denominations, right? One was the local dollar, one they called a tourist dollar. Okay, so the tourist dollar was the only ones that tourists can use, and the local dollar you had to be a local to use it. Okay, so we get in there and you buy your tourist dollar from using Canadian money. So I had to convert all my money. You have to know exactly how much money you're going to use there. So I bought Canadian and euros. And then when I get there, then you go to the money exchange. They'll exchange your money into tourist dollars. So I haven't been there in a year, So actually, I went there the month before COVID started. I think it was April 2 years ago. I went into Havana, and so I haven't been there for 2 years. So within the 2 years, they did away with the tourist dollar. So the money I had saved at tourist dollars, it was like Mexican money when it was the old Mexican money.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
kept it, it's worth
Not worth
nothing.
Useless.
anything. Yeah.
It's
Oh,
the
my
same
God.
thing in Cuba now.
Oh no.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
So I lost a couple $100, but luckily I didn't have more than that.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know, but that's the nuances and things you got to know about sometimes about doing that kind of thing. But Cuba is very exotic, and they really enjoy Americans there. They really like
Well,
Americans.
that's the truth.
I'm in, man. I want to go.
I entertain a thought, with all the bass fishing down here, and California, the state of California, killed the trophy bass fishing. Total mismanagement. It's horrible. But Cuba, at one point, it was on my radar because it was approaching some of those record numbers, and I was kind of logging it the whole time. That was almost a doable thing at the time. I don't know what the situation is now, but there was a time where it was starting to peak, and they were getting that 19, that upper range.
Wow,
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. I
Yeah.
never hear about
Yeah,
the
they had
bass
lakes
there.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, everybody kind of goes there mainly for tarpon, permit, and bonefish.
Yeah.
There are some outside sport boats, but I don't hear too much about that activity. And most of the guys that do that are fly fishermen, and there are some spin fishermen that do it, but mostly fly fishermen. So that's why I do both. I go conventional fishing and to fly fish, and in the travel business, I tell people, they don't know this, but being in the travel business, I have to identify a fisherman in about 5 to 10 minutes. So when I talk to a fisherman and ask him questions in about 5 to 10 minutes, I can tell exactly what he wants and kind of know exactly where to put a fisherman, So you talk
That's
about
all the experience, Chet. But and that's why you should listen to guys like that. When Pete Demers and I went down to Guyana, Steve told me bring a fly rod. I go, get out of here, fly, 200-pound Arapaima. I says, get out. Are you crazy? And I'm loading it up with Spectra, and I'm having special equipment, that I'm taking down there to throw the lures with, right? You get down there, and Pete and I are very competitive, so we're making a lot of casts. Well, the ear bone on the Arapaima, right? They're very sensitive. So you can make about 1 or 2 casts a piece, and they sink out. And then they're down there for 40 minutes because they're air breathers, right? And at that point, I'm going, what an idiot. Now I get it. Because if you threw a fly, I could have made, I don't know how many strips. Because the landing is so soft, it's not going to spook them with these big lures. Splash, Well, three, 4 splashes, and they, bubble trail down. And you're not going to see them for 40 minutes. But with the fly, and I started kicking myself. I said, why didn't I listen and bring a 12, 13 weight, and they're not going anywhere because it's 4 to 6 feet of water. They get into the weeds. The guides will jump off, get in between the weeds, so they go out to the middle of the lake. They're all big, closed off, ponds basically. And when the water gets high, they get trapped in there, right? So yeah, the moral of the story is, you have to listen to the guides. When he first told me bring a fly rod, I go, yeah, are you crazy? 250-pound fish on a fly rod. But yeah,
Can you catch that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
So anyway,
You're
yeah,
welcome.
no, absolutely. I get that. But people should understand that when they're traveling, they need to listen to you. I'm just telling you that right now. You heard it from me, folks. He tells you something, you listen.
Well, I'm not
Yeah.
in the business anymore, but
Yeah, just
I-
your experience alone. I mean, what you're conveying right now is priceless, Chet.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I call it fishing profiling. I have to profile somebody quick, because if a guy say he wants to go to Cabo, I have to say, what do you want to catch? How do you want to catch it?
Yeah.
Does he want to catch it on the fly? Does he want to catch it spinning gear? Does he want to catch it on casting gear? whatever
Does he
it is.
just want to catch it?
Yeah,
right?
you
Yeah.
know,
What his
so-
level of expertise is.
Basically,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of folks that go fishing, they don't know about the fishery. They just wanna do it and try it, and it might be a bucket list thing, but you know they want to give it a try.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of actually relates to me why I'm coming back and forth in LA so much and fishing is because I think I told you about the bluefin tuna. I had never caught a bluefin tuna ever in my life. Okay, so now it's 75 years.
Oh, geez.
Okay, so about 8 years ago when the bluefin started, again, my good friend in the Islander Club,
Yeah.
Elliot, he kept telling me, you know, the bluefin are here. We have to do it, you know. And I didn't really listen. And I was living more in Honolulu at the time. And so finally, about 2 years ago, I started to cave in. And so I said, you know what? I think I do want to try and get my bluefin, my bucket list bluefin. You know, and as I told you before, I think I put it on my Facebook that what was it? Only about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I got on a charter with Jimmy Lou.
Oh,
he invited
Master
me.
Lou.
He invited me to go fishing with
Yeah,
him for the bluefin.
yeah.
I said, sure, I'm going to be fishing with the best.
Absolutely.
And, you know, with a good charter, we only had 9 guys on board.
Yeah.
And I was super rusty. After, 40 years, I haven't
yeah,
fished in LA.
yeah.
Super rusty. All the new types of gear, 2-speed reels and all, crazy and stuff. So now I'm a novice. I'm hooked on the bluefin. And so every time I come back now, I'm looking for a boat to get on. But I was trying to get on your boat, Phil, but unfortunately the dates didn't line up. And
We'll get at that time
Yeah.
in the future.
So are you fishing with Jimmy?
actually, Jimmy is fishing in a couple days, but his charter's booked. And so I couldn't get on with him.
Chip, I have so many, he'll kill me. I have so many Jimmy Lou, he's a legend, okay? I mean, think about it. Well, you know how tiny he is.
Yeah.
Here's a guy that, one of the first 300-pound yellowfin on a single speed, standing up. He's a technician. I've never seen an angler so astute, where he's fished with me every single Sunday with 2 different groups. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know anybody. I would walk into his tackle box was always on the starboard hatch on the Mustang. It was on the corner. And I wouldn't ask. I just go and open it up, and here's a guy every single week, that fishes every week, that had new tackle or new lure, and he had it in that one corner.
Yeah.
How many guys are like that? Not many. He's very special, you know. Nobody has, he's so astute, technical things, everything that he did. Do you remember he started doing some of the first super glue seminars and he glued his fingers together like this. So every time we see Jerry to this day is, hey, Jimmy, you know, and he goes, Cat Dota, you know, because he had that famous catfish stop on the Mustang. I don't know, you've heard about that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's legendary. We had, what was it, a quarter or 1/3 of the entire fleet count because of his catfish that we were playing around joking, stopped the boat, and we went in to nail the albacore, and we were in it for hours and hours. But we had 1/3 of the entire fleet count thanks to Jimmy Lou. So he's renowned. He's an old friend. He's one of the best guys you ever meet. But yeah, right? You know, yeah.
Hanging around
Jim was the
Joe's.
man. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was. So yeah. I saw in your last podcast they talked about Gardena Bowl, and you wanted to give it a try.
Yeah.
We used to go with Yo for dinner there, right?
Yep.
Yo, we used to have dinner, and then he'd go back to the shop and work after that. And so, yeah. It was,
Yeah, oh yeah.
Got
A lot
to do
of-
that too.
Absolutely.
that's a-
Absolutely.
yeah. Been around for a long time.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
You got me so excited. My son is moving to Florida December 15th, Patrick.
oh,
So, I mean, the first phone call I'm going to make on the way home is, we have got to do Cuba. You know, we have a guy that can help talk us through it and everything else now.
sure, yeah.
Chet, yeah, my dear friend Chet.
Yeah.
And Danny, I would love to do that. We might even
Oh, my
grab
God.
Steve over at Promar and have him film that. Have a
Oh,
real professional.
unbelievable. Yeah.
job on that.
Unbelievable.
Is there any problem filming in Cuba? Does the government frown on that, or are they good with that?
You know, I didn't look into that actually, so I don't know. But I know you can't fly drones there.
Yeah,
Yeah, drones is a no-no. In almost any country, drones is a no-no.
right.
Yeah, every country. They don't like the drones. Yeah. So, but yeah. It's a pretty good life.
Oh my God.
my God.
We've enjoyed this so much.
Well, look at the experience
Yeah.
and the knowledge that, and Chet, you were hesitant about doing that. The people have benefited so much by your experience.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I've loved this.
This is a legendary, talk about technical things and things, that you should know when you travel and being a trailblazer. Oh my gosh.
I thought it's
A book.
pretty boring.
You wrote
but
the book. No,
Oh, come on. it's
got to
so
rewrite that
exciting.
book. Yeah.
So let me ask you a good question. We're moving up on, we're going to have a 3-hour show here.
Holy
Oh.
smoly.
Um,
Thank you for hanging in there, folks.
Do you want to sit here and we'll catch up on some questions with Danny?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to go home? Do you want to, what do you want? You tell me.
Well, they may have questions for him.
That's
I
true.
mean, hey, you once in a
You're stuck
lifetime,
there,
you got
Chet.
I'll stay.
you got Chet.
I'm retired. I'm on
encyclopedia.
vacation.
Come
All
on,
right. We
you
prefer
got
you stay.
you got that
Okay,
opportunity,
thanks.
folks.
because
Go
At
ahead.
the end of the show, I'd love to shake your hand and,
Yeah.
it's been great. All right, so I'm gonna try to do this.
Absolutely, let's
Yeah,
do
get
it.
you
Let's
to
let's go for it.
We were talking about yellowtail in San Diego. Doug Rubin says the half-day boats got all over them in La Jolla today, Danny. So that is good.
Oh,
news.
God.
Steve wants to know: do long-range boats have crew trained to handle health emergencies for a passenger? For example, if someone forgot their medication.
Well, on medication,
Yeah, that's
that could be
different
that's
thing.
a
You
tough
gotta get
thing.
medication at that
Yeah,
point.
that's a tough deal.
But those guys are trained and
Yeah, and then the networking between all the boats going in and out too. They might be able to transfer it over through other boats too. You
Yeah.
know. You might be down for a day or so. More. But it depends how far down you are too.
Steve Bermuda says the world is falling apart. Let's go fishing. Sounds like a good idea. Puck Hugh says he's got freezers full of bluefin tuna. He wants to know how can he donate his fish because he doesn't need any more. He's going to come out and fish, but how can he donate them? I'll help him.
Oh
with that.
yeah, you could.
I
We
can help you
could
with
figure
that.
that out.
Yeah.
There's well, you go down and see orphanages and stuff
Yeah.
down in Mexico. I mean, I'm sure they won't deny.
Puck Hugh,
deny any of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Puck Hugh is this guy's name, so don't think I'm getting nasty here, Chad.
No.
All right, hey, Larry's watching. He says, hello from Clearwater, Florida.
Holy
So
smokes!
today we've had people from Montana, from Florida, from Taiwan, from, where was the other place somebody was from? I forget. All over the place. This is
That's
great.
unbelievable. That's awesome.
Let's see. Oh, Larry was saying, it sucks that we don't read the chat. Larry, we read the chat every single night. We just had a special guest here, my friend. Every night we read the chat. We're reading it right now. Aaron says, yeah, he says they do, but they're in a deep conversation with a special guest. They have a motion sickness bracelet. Google it, says Emmanuel Navedo. You guys have any experience?
It's an acupressure
Does
type.
it work?
It's a point. Yeah, I haven't. Well, I haven't needed it, but I've seen it. Yeah.
Same here. Never
Yeah.
get seasick. So.
Now I do have a funny story. Terry Rando at Arts Tackle one
Yeah.
time. He had an electronic deal, and he goes, "Hey, come see this." I was telling him, "Gail gets seasick. I'm going to take my wife out. What do you got?" So he puts this thing on me, and you talk about a prankster. So he turns it up all the way, and he buzzes it. My arm is doing this, and I go, "I'm going to kill you." Just turn this thing off, Oh, it was spasming like crazy. But yeah, Terry. Oh, Randall.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay, I'm reading some of the stuff that we don't need to do. The guy texted me the picture of the striper they caught in Redondo, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, cool.
And Puck you, Dave Clark says you can donate fish to the Warrior Village on PCH near the Marine base. I dropped off about 50 pounds of processed bluefin a few months ago. He said,
There you go.
that's Veterans Village.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes.
Dan Bates, Halibut Man Mitchell says hello, Dan Bates. Where did you find this guy? They're talking about Chet. He is great.
Wow,
Keep the
absolutely.
stories going. He might have to come back. I agree. Jeremy says, good evening.
Thanks.
Tell Sam I'm still waiting for my free lures. I'll tell him that. Love the chat. Let's see, hooks, not lures. Ken Trenholm, what an awesome show tonight. I love traveling vicariously through others. Chet.
Yeah, he's the
done a
man.
great job, man.
Yeah, one of the trailblazers.
And Jeremy says he's used the bracelet a couple of times with regular Dramamine, and it worked like a charm. We're all caught up here, boys.
Woo,
So,
okay.
I don't know if you want to end the show.
No,
Or,
let's.
I mean,
You know, I
Chet,
just want to
what
thank
a-
Chet for coming in. And here he was, hesitant about coming in. Could be one of our greatest. I mean, the information, folks, that you got from, you know, Chet's experience is golden. You know, what can I tell you? I want to thank you too, Chet. Man, it's just good seeing you.
No, thanks
I
for
miss the old
calling me.
days.
I was
Oh.
surprised to get a call from
God,
you.
that's awesome.
40 years since you guys have seen each other?
I think that's
Yeah,
right.
well, like I said,
on
we
there.
did a lot of those early travel trips on to Mexico and things like that. But just, you know, just the experience, the T-shirt deal. I mean, we had fun. We
Is
had fun.
Danny
It's
still
been
as
done.
handsome as you remember? Remember him being?
You know, more so.
Or no? Man, he's really
Oh
buying you
my
off.
God! Yeah, you got it. Oh my God!
Well, gentlemen, why don't
Okay.
we go on a trip someday together? Whether
There's a
it's
great idea.
Across the border down to Rosarito or San Quintin or.
Or even a plate lunch in Honolulu one day,
Man,
maybe. Who
so-
knows? You know, something. Yeah.
Yeah, if you ever come to Hawaii, I'll take you fishing and take you for a plate lunch.
I would love that. A good friend of mine moved over there several years ago, and Joey Gallagher is his name, and they have a place called Gallagher Staging here in Los Angeles. They do the staging for
Oh, okay.
the really big shows, big stuff. But he's also very generous because if you look out here, Chet, there's bags of clothing, and we store all that at the Gallagher Staging warehouse, and then 2 or 3 times a year we ship it all down to Mexico. And we're going to be doing that right before Christmas. on
That's
our next
great.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fun
That's
stuff.
good stuff. Let's see, Daniel Llanos, this is a great show, guys. Thank you. Part 2 with Danny and Chet, Steve says.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do another show. Is that all
Oh
right?
boy. Yeah, I gotta get in town, huh?
Yeah.
Once in a
Yeah.
while.
We'll plan it. We'll plan it. When you get in town, we'll pop it in there.
I can see
That's
people
that's a done deal.
just listening to every
Oh,
second of
absolutely.
this great stuff.
Absolutely.
Cuba, New Zealand, Mexico,
unbelievable.
Costa Rica. Nick Curcione. Oh my God. I'm gonna have to call Nick right on the way home tonight
There
too.
you go.
Yeah.
Story about fly fishing, real quick, if you
Yeah,
want.
with Nick.
Yeah.
Is it everything to do with them?
Well, doesn't have to do with fly fishing so much as when I was in the business. You know, like Danny knows. You know, you get a lot of rods and reels to test out and whatnot, and so. You know, I didn't realize it till my recent visits here that United Composites, right, used to be, what was it called? Something USA.
Well, Graphite USA.
Graphite USA. I wanted to get it right. Graphite USA, which started out as mainly fly rods, right? So, and I was doing a lot of fly fishing, so involved with the fly fishing business too. So I got to meet the owner of Graphite USA. His name was Dick Kantner. You probably heard the name. Dick Kantner started, he was an aerospace engineer, and he started it, but he started doing golf club shafts first.
A lot of the rods guys did. Gary
then-
did, Loomis, and those guys all did too. Yeah.
So I still to this day have every rod that he gave me to use of Graphite USA, which turned into, long story short, it's United Composites, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting for me, you know, that started with Dick Kentner.
Yeah.
And then I think he moved to Phoenix, and then Phoenix had moved back to California.
Well, a lot of the golf shafts and stuff were manufactured in Phoenix. That's why a lot of those guys gravitated over there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Because Gary Loomis did the same thing.
Oh.
We started going into golf. We go, oh, please, Gary. You know, but he did, you know. But yeah.
So yeah, I know you can relate to that.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's going to be here in a couple of weeks. We're here.
Oh,
He's
okay.
coming in. I'm dragging him in December. Phil. We got that down,
Oh,
right?
that's great,
yeah,
Danny.
yeah, but yeah, we've been blessed being around a lot of unbelievable people, phenomenal people.
Yeah, Gary Loomis rods. I used to have some. In fact, I was fishing up in Sacramento, on the Sacramento River, and I took my brother-in-law fishing. Right.
Yeah.
I had a boat up there too, and we're fishing for salmon, and he's on the bow, and Loomis rod, and I forget what kind of reel on there, but you know, they were back in the day. They were $200 rods. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was expensive. It was, somehow he threw it in the river.
Oh, no.
Well, Chet, you're gonna have to tune in when Gary gets here. It's gonna be a roast on both of us, trust me.
Oh yeah.
And but you're gonna be dying. You're gonna be dying laughing. I mean, there's some stuff that we did at shows and things. Yeah, but yeah, he's a clown, and yeah, we all have stories, and that's, you know, we might want to make an album, a comedy deal out of that one.
Oh my God, I'm ready.
Yeah.
A couple more, let me read a couple more. Since we're still going, we got a few more minutes here.
Oh my God.
Brian says, this has been an awesome show tonight. Just wish I could have been with those guys back then. But then I think about it, how mean stories have been lost with our brother, how many stories have been lost with our brothers. Albert Ponce, hey guys, sorry for the late tune in. I just made it to Rosarito. He's got a great place in
Oh,
Rosarito.
awesome.
I've stayed with him.
Yeah.
Couldn't wait to see you guys. Great show as always. Mitchell, Halibut man, as a 31-year-old, my motto is always listen to people with gray hair, especially gray fishermen. How about no hair?
yeah. Come on over here. We'll slap some paint up there, Phil.
Let me tell you, when it grows, it's gray. So there's no doubt about it. What a great
good.
show.
Unbelievable.
Matt Tamayo, amazing show tonight, gentlemen. Yeah, it was.
Well,
Chad.
and thank you
Thank you.
guys for tuning in, but Chet especially. Yeah.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, you want to wrap it up, Danny? Go ahead.
Well, listen,
Hit that
folks.
like button, everybody.
Thank you so much for tuning in, and again, the blessing, you know, with Phil and having that opportunity to have Chet in town here. Oh man, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I could go on forever, but you know, we're gonna let you guys sleep tonight. But thanks for tuning in, folks.
Chet, thank you so
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me in. Appreciate it.
Good night.